Good morning, students. This is the live learning classes of Final Paper 6 Integrated Business Solutions. I'm Priya Subramanian, and with me today is CA Rajiv Sachdevaji and Miss Nisha Gupta, as well as Miss Dimple Goel, CA Dimple Goel, who will be joining after some time. So this is relating to the multidisciplinary case study in Final Paper 6 Integrated Business Solutions. So as you all must be knowing, it's an amalgam of 5 papers at the final level plus Set A and Set B. And we have web hosted 15 case studies in the BOS knowledge portal. In addition, some case studies which are based primarily on strategic decision making, that will be there in your student journal this time in February, so that you get a holistic idea. You go do the case studies which are web hosted at the BOS knowledge portal, plus the case studies which are in the journal. In addition, we will also be giving you case studies through your revision test paper, as well as your 2 series of mock test papers. So I can see here Mr. Sailesh Mane and Mr. Viraj Desai. A very good morning, and good morning to all of you who are watching this session. So many of you last time during the last session, you were wondering where the case studies were web hosted at the BOS knowledge portal. Initially, it was web hosted under the study material for IBS paper 6. You were not able to locate. Likewise, people were not able to locate where the saransh is. So I'd like to take you through the BOS knowledge portal first, so that you are easily able to locate it. Okay, so this is the ICAI website, which you all must be familiar with, I'm very sure. Now, in this website, you just I hope you can all see the screen share now. Are you able to see the ICAI website on screen? Are you able to, all of you able to see the ICAI website on screen? Yeah. Now I click on the students and then on the BOS knowledge portal. You must all be very familiar with the BOS knowledge portal. Now come down. See, after the study material new scheme, we have web hosted the case studies of integrated business solutions here. So when you click on that, all the 15 case studies are visible to you. Then you can go into each case study and work it out. So I hope you've understood, because it's on the front screen itself. Next to the study material new scheme, we've separately web hosted the 15 case studies. And also the Saransh last mile referencer we had suggested to you, like many people, many students were asking like what to take, how do you carry so many books into the to the exam hall, for which we had suggested that in some subjects you can carry the Saransh also, like in the case of direct and indirect taxes, which anyway a student of group 2 will have to study under the closed book regime. You can take the Saransh of the direct and indirect taxes. For Ind AS, which is very comprehensive, for that also you can take the Saransh. So Saransh is web hosted again adjacent to the case studies in the BOS knowledge portal. Saransh last mile referencer for the various subjects. I hope you can all see it on the screen. So it's web hosted here. So if you want direct taxes and international taxation, you can click here. So this is the Saransh for direct and indirect taxes. Likewise, when you click each and every subject, you get the respective Saransh. Saransh is basically what? I hope all of you are aware of what Saransh is. It's somewhat like your capsules in the student journal, where we present things in a concise form, okay, which is useful for the purpose of your revision. See, this is the way Saransh is presented, because for you to readily grasp the provisions of the tax laws, so it's presented in the form of tables, flow charts, diagrams. Prasad, I'm not understanding your question. You've written we've used the case studies. See, the case studies which we are discussing with you again is for the purpose of enabling you to understand how to integrate the provisions of the provisions concepts in different chapters and apply them in solving a case study. These sessions are primarily meant for that. So you have independently studied in DSS, you've independently studied auditing and direct, indirect taxes and all, but it comes to one case study where you have questions on accounting as well as auditing as well as taxes. How do you go about answering that? How do you go about answering that is you have to apply the provisions which you studied in the different subjects and then apply them in solving a case study. These sessions basically help you in understanding the manner in which you proceed to do that. What you've already studied, how do you apply it in case study solving? And as mentioned to you earlier in the last session itself, in the very first session, those for the benefit of those who have not attended that session, let me tell you the paper is going to be case study based. You will have 5 case studies out of which you can answer any 4. And in each case study carries 25 marks. Out of which 10 marks are for MCQs. There'll be 5 MCQs of 2 marks each, and you'll have to choose one correct option. You need not give any reasoning for that. Of course, you will have to reason out to arrive at the answer, but you need not write any reason in your paper, and there is no negative marking in respect of that. The remaining 15 marks are descriptive questions. You might have 2 or 3 questions depending upon the requirement of the question, and depending upon the marks, the requirement of will be the requirement of the question. See, actually, as per what I told you, the paper pattern is you will have 5 MCQs and then you will have descriptive questions for 15 marks. But the case studies we take up may have more MCQs. That is just for practice purpose. Even the case studies which we are putting in the student journal this time, more questions we are giving you for the purpose of your practice. But in the exam, you will have only, for each case study of 25 marks, you have 5 MCQs of 2 marks each, and the remaining are descriptive questions of 15 marks. What should be the study approach for this paper? See, normally now, study approach, the moment you study the respective subjects, you automatically prepare for the case study paper. Actually, there is no separate studies is required except for people who are taking only group 2. Then they'll have to study the other group also. For that only, we are facilitating you by providing the saransh, and also there are recorded lectures of different subjects available to you in the website, and those recorded lectures, whichever subject you're finding it a little bit difficult or you want your concepts clarified, you can watch those recorded lectures. Also, you can raise your queries through the mobile app and ask your query. This one, you can raise your queries and those will also be answered. In this way, we will be able to facilitate you in understanding. Also, the website has the landline number of the different subjects for the different subjects. In case of queries, you can contact the respective faculty and they will guide you as to what is the particular concept or what is the particular provision which you have not understood. Okay. So I hope this is all clear. The announcement is web hosted. Again, the announcement for 40% MCQs and 60% by way of descriptive questions in each case study of 25 marks. That is 10 marks for MCQs, 5 MCQs of 2 marks each, and 15 marks for descriptive questions. There will be 5 case studies out of which you can choose any 4. And for studying, you have the different study material, you have the saransh, and you have the case studies which are web hosted in the knowledge portal, plus the case studies which will be made available to you through the RTP as well as the MTPs. So you try solving them, try watching these sessions, they will be helpful to you. And even not the related provisions also will be explained to you. It's not only explaining the case study, explaining the related provisions and how you go about answering the provisions. Also, sometimes when we give the answers in the web-hosted case studies or in the journal, the answers we might explain more in detail. That is for the purpose of your understanding. In the exam, you have to go as per the marks allocated for that question, and accordingly you have to answer the question. Here, because we are teaching you for the purpose of explaining to you, it might be a little bit more in length. See, as far as costing is concerned, and as far as the law is concerned, SET A and SET B study material have been web hosted at the BOS Knowledge Portal. Also, I'll just take you to that. It's not here. No? I hope now you can see the screen share. See, here you have the SET A study material, corporate and economic laws, and thereafter the SET B study material. These are also web hosted at the BOS Knowledge Portal. And what I would suggest, there's an MCQ paper practice dashboard also. And you can go to the MCQ paper practice dashboard. There will be a variety of MCQs. That MCQs are for the purpose of testing whether you've understood that related provisions of the chapter or not. So you can solve it to assess your level of understanding. Of course, the paper here is going to be definitely case study based. Those MCQs are for the purpose of assessing, making a self-assessment of yourself, whether you've understood the concepts or not. Okay, Viraj Desai, you're asking, it is difficult to carry each and every module of each paper for paper 6. As I said, it is not practically possible to carry all modules. So you have to make an assessment as to which subjects you are strong at and which subjects you have face a little bit difficulty, and accordingly decide which study material to carry. And in subjects where you are anyway going to attempt a closed book examination like direct and indirect taxes, you may consider carrying the Saransh of direct and indirect tax laws and the study material of AMA. And for Ind-AS also we have a Saransh. So accordingly, you have to use your discretion, and based on your own, each student has to decide based on their own strengths and difficult areas what they should carry. And if anyway you're going to study certain subject under a closed book regime, like in case of direct and indirect tax laws, you can carry the Saransh instead. See, like as Saransh will not cover 100%. It is a revisionary material. It will not cover 100% of it. But anyway, you're going to study these subjects under the closed book regime. And majority of the provisions it covers. So that is the way in which you will be able to carry the material in your open book regime. Certain material, you can carry the full material. Advanced management accounting, you can carry the full material. Ind-AS Saransh is very comprehensive. DTA, IDTA also, it covers significant provisions of the tax laws. 100% of a provisions definitely a Saransh can't carry, and you are anyway expected to read that for your respective paper. So Saransh is an easy way of what you can carry under an open book regime. Study material for some subjects and Saransh for some subjects, which you will have to decide depending upon your strength areas. Namrata, as I'm saying, I am not telling you that you have to carry, we may carry only Saransh. You can carry study materials for some subjects where you really feel that you have the necessity that you have to carry the study material. That particular subject happens to be your weak area or your difficult area, then you carry the study material for that subject. Some subjects which you are as it is very strong at, if you're very strong as it is at Ind-AS, then you can carry the Saransh for Ind-AS. That is what I meant. So actually, we can proceed through the case study session. Mr. Rajiv Sachdeva, Nisha Gupta and Dimple Goel will take up the case study, and they will also answer any queries in relation to that which is raised by you. And wishing you all the best. I'm sure all of you will do very well in this paper. It's again, and one thing which I forgot to mention, it's an open book paper, and open book and case study based already we mentioned, because we've told you it's 5 case studies out of which you have to choose any 4. I'm sure all of you will do very well in this paper. For any guidance, the BOS is always there to help you. Over to Rajiv Sachdeva ji.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Priya madam, for sharing most important things of this subject. Thank you very much, Priya madam. Yes, students, Today we will be taking a case study, and with me Nisha Gupta, who is faculty in law. Nisha?
Yes, sir.
Nisha, madam?
Good morning, students. Welcome to you on this online session on IBS. Yes, today we are going to have a wonderful session because this is a very knowledgeable session for you, dear friends. Because in this session, we are going to come across with the integration of the subject, how the subject has been integrated and try to come up with the different aspect related to the application of the subject in the given scenarios. So here Rajesh sir will be beginning the case studies and we'll be just letting you know what are the important facts, and wherever required he'll be just making you to have a knowledge of that particular things whichever is coming within the preview of the case studies.
True. Nisha, madam, you can share the case study with the
Yes,
student.
sir. Yes, sir. Case studies. Yes. Yes, sir. I hope the screen is visible to all our dear students. Yes, sir.
Yes. Students, this case study is about 4 chartered accountants. Students, this case study is about 4 chartered accountants. And CA Arvind Kapoor, he is the founder of the CA firm Kapoor and Company, and he is having 4 partners with him. CA Arvind Kapoor is the founder, and CA Rajesh Dhamija, CA Piyush Makkad, and CA Gaurav Satija. These are the 3 chartered accountants are his partners. So he is chartered accountant. Kapoor and Company is the firm name in which they are practicing. It has rich experience. It has experience of almost 35 years. 35 years experience in dealing with diverse clientele, from individual taxpayers to conglomerates, corporates, corporate clients, individual, all sort of clients, firms, companies they are having. Their audit approach is very practical, pragmatic, relying on a risk-based audit methodology built on extensive planning and client input, and is fully supported by the latest technology and tools. As a result, the firm's audit practice has grown continuously and has earned specialization in core area. They are practicing in taxation, GST, indirect taxation, internal audit, then law, etc. So many areas are there. C. Arvind Kapoor is basically looking after income tax. Students, आप थोड़ा सा मैं आपको insight देता हूँ. Whenever you are doing the case study with us, just you should have your notebooks and pens with you so that you can write brief notes. अभी मैं आपको कुछ काफी सारी बातें बताऊंगा, तो वो आप थोड़ा सा नोट डाउन करोगे, आपको केस स्टडी करने में मजा आएगा फिर. So you will enjoy doing the case study if you have notebook and pen with you. C. Arvind Kapoor is basically dealing in direct tax. So you can note down what I am telling you. C. A. Rajesh Dhamija, he is master of, he is expert in law field, law area. Piyush Makkad, he is basically dealing in GST law. Okay. So ये इनके एरियाज हैं जो इस केस स्टडी में मेनली यूज हुए हैं. इस केस स्टडी में CA Arvind Kapoor, he is income tax expert, Rajesh Dhamija is law expert, and Piyush Makkad is indirect tax expert. And Gaurav Satija, these are the 4 partners. They are specialized, all are specialized in their own area. They all met at a common event and decided to start their own firm. With their combined efforts and dedication, firm has accumulated an enormous amount of knowledge capital that has been built with passing of every year. This has resulted in association of various valuable clients with the firm. And one of such valuable clients is Vallabh Cotton Limited, which is a listed company. तो listed company के ऑडिटर्स हैं. Vallabh Cotton Limited is leading manufacturer of cotton. There are some issues going on in the company in respect of appointment of small shareholders director. Students, the moment you come across small shareholders director, so one thing should immediately come to your mind that this question, this scenario is going in respect of law area. The company gets its all the finance related work done from CA or finance. CA Gaurav Sathija, fourth partner, he is doing finance work on behalf of the firm. When management discussed this matter with CA Gaurav Sathija, he praised work of his partner CA Rajesh Dhamija, जो कि मैंने आपको पहले बताया था, who is an expert in company law matters because he is practicing in law area and he has got 15 years, more than 15 years of experience in this law area. Hence, management approached CA Rajesh Dhamija for seeking his advice on appointment of small shareholders director and appointment of woman director in the company. Company has 10 lakh equity shares of rupees 10 each and कंपनी हैज ये सारा स्टूडेंट्स. अब जब बीच में डाटा आ जाता है, व्हेन यू कम अक्रॉस while reading the case study, while you will read in the exam also, so note down important data which is coming in between and the subject to which it relates. Note down the important data and also note down the subject to which it relates, so that when you will come across the questions, it would become easy for you to handle the question and identify where you had come across data related to that question in the case study. So this is very important thing which I am sharing with you, that whenever you are reading the case study, note the important data which is coming there and the subject to which it relates. Company has 500 small shareholders. अब देखो ये सारा डाटा है जो दे रहा है केस स्टडी के अंदर. Majority 400 of the out of 500, 400 of the small shareholders, they wanted to appoint Mr. Brajesh as director, as their representative on the board of directors of the said company. And Mr. Brajesh already holds 10,000 equity shares और मिस्टर ब्रजेश के पास स्टूडेंट्स 10,000 इक्विटी शेयर्स. तो ये लॉ से रिलेटेड सारा डाटा आपको क्वेश्चन में दिया गया है. निशा मैडम, आप इस डाटा के बारे में स्टूडेंट को कुछ समझाना चाहेंगे?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Dear students, whenever, as already sir has said you, when any figure or data is given, so definitely it must be having some kind of relevance within the questions that have been asked under the case studies. So when any data is given, just try to understand and link it, whatever is given in line with the legal provisions. Because definitely somewhere the legal provisions state certain requirements. There should be dash number of the shareholders, or they must be holding this number of shares. So everything that relevant information is given in the provision. So you have to link whatever the information is given in the case study. You need to link what is the given in legal provisions and what are the requirements. You have to link it while just reading the case studies. So somewhere you have to jot down these data given over there. You have to just make it and mark it in your mind itself. It should be clear. Yes, these are the relevant information that you have to again read while reading the questions. So before attempting the question, read these data again so that you can exactly find out what is given and what you need to find it out.
Thank you, Nisha madam. Thank you, Nisha madam.
Yes, sir. And
moving ahead, students, one sister concern of Vallabh Cotton Limited, this is a related party, is Agarsen Spinners Private Limited. Earlier, this Agarsen Spinners Private Limited, it was in the business of trading of yarns. Now, gradually, the company wants to go forward in the area of manufacturing as well. Now, they want to manufacture yarns. Earlier, they were doing trading of yarns. Now want to they want to install a manufacturing plant from there where they will manufacture yarn. Last year, the company had made capital investment in construction of building. This year, the company purchased machinery on 1st April for rupees 10 crores. The company had paid from their own funds 30% and balance 70% कंपनी ने लोन लिया है बैंक से एट 12% पर एनम. 30% स्टूडेंट्स मार्जिन है. ओन फंड्स जो होता है मार्जिन मनी होती है स्टूडेंट्स. The machine was required for extension of business of the company and was put to use into effective production on 1st February 24. The accountant of the company wants to take advice from CA अरविंद कपूर. मैंने आपको बताया था कि अरविंद कपूर इनकम टैक्स मैटर्स कंपनी के देखता हुए स्पेशलाइज्ड इन डायरेक्ट टैक्सेशन रिगार्डिंग अमाउंट ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन दैट कैन बी क्लेम्ड बाय द कंपनी. तो कंपनी उससे एडवाइस क्या ले रही है कि डेप्रिसिएशन, हाउ मच डेप्रिसिएशन इट कैन क्लेम, और रिलेटिंग टू इंटरेस्ट ऑन, बिकॉज सिंस द कंपनी हैज टेकन लोन फ्रॉम बैंक, 70% हैज बीन financed from bank. 10 crore machinery cost is 10 crore and 70% is financed from bank. So 7 crore finance they have taken from bank. And on 7 crore students, naturally interest element would be there. तो सेक्शन जब भी इंटरेस्ट हम पे इंटरेस्ट एलिमेंट आ जाता है तो आप सबको मालूम है सेक्शन 36(1)(3) एप्लीकेबल हो जाता है. सेक्शन 36(1)(3) इनकम टैक्स लॉ का बीच में आ जाएगा और डेप्रिसिएशन के प्रोविजन सेक्शन 32 के अंदर कवर होते हैं स्टूडेंट्स. तो ये आपके दिमाग में ऑब्वियस बातें हैं जो आनी चाहिए. ऑफ कोर्स ओपन बुक एग्जामिनेशन है, लेकिन फिर भी अगर आप सेक्शंस, अगर आपने डीपली स्टडी किया हुआ है, अगर आपने कंसेप्चुअली आपने क्लैरिटी ली हुई है, आपने डीप जाके स्टडी की हुई है, तो आप फटाफट से आइडेंटिफाई कर पाएंगे. और फिर आपके लिए सर्चिंग भी, जो आपने ओपन बुक एग्जामिनेशन है ऑफ कोर्स, तो आपके लिए सर्चिंग भी आसान हो जाएगी. फिर व्हाट इज योर व्यू निशा मैडम?
Sir, regarding this thing, sir,
what I was explaining was
yes, sir.
When you are able to correlate, when you are able to identify which sections are involved,
Yes, sir.
be it law, be it income tax, be it GST,
Yes.
right? It doesn't matter. When you are able to identify that
Which section is
what
going
the
to...
case study is asking about,
Yes, yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
जैसे डेप्रिसिएशन इंटरेस्ट के बारे में पूछ रहा है, तो अगर मैं देखता हूं कि सेक्शन 32 डेप्रिसिएशन का है और सेक्शन 36(1)(3) इंटरेस्ट के बारे में बात करता है, तो मैं इमीडिएटली सर्चिंग भी मेरी आसान हो जाती है. ये मैं कहना चाह रहा था. तो सर्चिंग
Yes, sir.
मेरी
Yes, sir. Agree with you, sir. Because this is an open book examination. It is correct. But
एक मिनट स्टूडेंट्स, मैं आपको इंट्रोड्यूस कर देता हूँ. सीए डिंपल गोयल, who is
good morning,
faculty in
students.
direct tax laws, is with us, and she would be taking you through the direct tax provisions which are involved in the case study. Yes, Dimple, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir, for the introduction. Yes, students, sir rightly said that this is an open book examination, but you can't just go like that ki you don't know the provision or the section, because it will waste your time to searching here and there. So you must know ki which section is going to impact in this. While in this case study, when we are reading, yes, there is a purchase of machinery and there is some own fund element and there is some loan also for acquisition of this asset. So it should strike in your mind ki yeah, that will impact your interest deduction as well as your depreciation. So you must know there is a section 36(1)(3) which is related to that. You must know ki there is a section 43B which is related to actual payment basis. You will allow the deduction. In case of interest, you have taken from scheduled bank, notified NBFC and all these things. For depreciation, there is a section 43 for actual cost. There is a depreciation के लिए you had a section of 32(1)(2) which prescribe the percentage as well as the how much depreciation you are eligible for. So all these things it must be come in your mind, because you can't search whole study material ki whether what section is going to impact from this. So it will
Thank you,
unnecessarily
Dimple.
waste your time.
Thank you, Dimple, for throwing light on these things. What I was, students, conveying, Dimple मैडम ने आपको डिटेल में जाके समझाया जो मैं बात बोल रहा था, कि आपके लिए सर्चिंग इजी हो जाएगी अगर जैसे डिम्पल मैडम ने एडिशनल
बिल्कुल
सेक्शंस
सर।
बताए, सेक्शन 43 एक्चुअल कॉस्ट का बताया, तो स्टूडेंट्स ये सारे सेक्शंस जब आपके दिमाग में आ जाएंगे तो देन सर्चिंग विल बी इजी बिकॉज इट इज एन ओपन बुक एग्जामिनेशन। इसमें आपको ये ध्यान रखना है कि आप एक बार तो आपको कंप्लीट थॉरो स्टडी करनी पड़ेगी, उसके बाद आपकी सर्चिंग आसान हो जाएगी। और स्टूडेंट्स कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी टू अप्लाई द प्रोविजंस, ये आपको हाई लेवल पे आना चाहिए बिकॉज सीए फाइनल स्टूडेंट्स प्रोफेशनल लेवल है। कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी होगी तो ही आप अप्लाई कर पाओगे चीजों को, अदरवाइज एप्लीकेशन आपके लिए डिफिकल्ट हो। आप देखो कि बारीकी से जाके क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा है। केस स्टडी में जो क्वेश्चंस बीइंग आस्क्ड इन द केस स्टडी आर वेरी माइन्यूट, आर कमिंग वेरी माइन्यूट। तो स्टूडेंट्स एक डीपर अंडरस्टैंडिंग की जरूरत है एंड द एप्लीकेशन ऑफ द कंसेप्ट्स is required to handle the case study, the questions asked in the case study. Moving further, going ahead in the case study, the management also wanted to discuss TDS provisions under income with CA Arvind Kapoor because he is income tax expert on the following payments made for job work. अब स्टूडेंट्स जब भी यहाँ पे तो बता ही दिया आपको TDS प्रोविजन, तो जॉब वर्क से रिलेटेड कौन सा टीडीएस का सेक्शन होता है वो आपके माइंड में आना चाहिए। हालांकि ये बहुत आसान क्वेश्चन पूछा हुआ है टीडीएस का। तो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नंबर बताया 1 2 3 4 5, डेट ऑफ पेमेंट लिखी हुई है स्टूडेंट्स, डिफरेंट डेट्स हैं और अमाउंट उसमें मेंशन है कि अब आपके माइंड में सेक्शन 194C आई सपोज जो कि टीडीएस से रिलेटेड है, जॉब वर्क टीडीएस से रिलेटेड है, तो वो आपके माइंड में इमीडिएटली स्ट्राइक करना चाहिए सो दैट अगर आपको कोई उस समय डाउट आता है, लिमिट्स हैं जैसे उसमें लिमिट 30,000 है मेरे ख्याल से। डिम्पल आप
Yes sir, single for the single contract there's a limit of 30,000
और एग्रीगेट में
aggregate में it's 1 lakh sir
1 लाख।
during the
तो ये लिमिट्स
financial।
देखो जैसे डिम्पल मैडम बता रही हैं स्टूडेंट्स, तो लिमिट आपके माइंड में उसी समय व्हाइल यू आर अंडरस्टैंडिंग, यू आर रीडिंग द केस स्टडी, so these things should strike your mind. This is what I am saying. And you should pen down those things. कुछ साथ में नोट्स भी बना लिया करें जब केस स्टडी आप रीड कर रहे हो। जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल इसका टोटल कितना है, टोटल पेमेंट कितनी हुई। अब आप देखोगे कोई भी अमाउंट इनमें 30,000, जैसे डिम्पल मैडम ने बताया कि अमाउंट 30,000 से ज्यादा होना चाहिए इंडिविजुअल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का, तो 30,000 से ज्यादा तो कोई भी नहीं है और इन एग्रीगेट वो 1 लाख से ऊपर होना चाहिए। तो यहाँ पे अगर आप टोटल लगाओगे तो 22 + 15 37 और 23 60 और 25 85 और 18 103, तो 1 लाख क्रॉस हो रहा है। सो इस तरह से आप मूव करो, पेन डाउन कर लो वट एवर इज गिवन इन द केस स्टडी, आप साथ साथ पेन डाउन कर लो नोटबुक पे अपने। कंपनी क्लेम दैट इट इज नॉट लायबल टू डिडक्ट to deduction of tax at source. The company is seeking advice on implication of TDS. So ये इस पे MCQ है या डिस्क्रिप्टिव क्वेश्चन है, वो हम केस स्टडी भी देखेंगे। Partners and staff of Kapoor and Company usually meet on every Saturday over coffee and discuss topics requiring deliberations. तो पार्टनर्स की मीटिंग होती है, ये बातें इसमें लिखी। Such exercise makes their staff updated as well. In one such meeting, they discussed issues relating to ITC, input tax credit, which is under GST law. In this meeting, they also discussed, क्योंकि मैंने आपको बताया था चारों पार्टनर्स का स्पेशलाइज्ड एरिया स्टूडेंट्स मैंने आपको बताया था। सीए पीयूष मक्कड़, ये पीयूष मक्कड़, ही इज जीएसटी एक्सपर्ट। सो जीएसटी के इश्यूज ये हैंडल कर रहे हैं एंड दे आर इन पर्टिकुलर दे आर डिस्कसिंग इश्यूज रिलेटिंग टू ब्लॉक आईटीसी। ब्लॉक आईटीसी का सेक्शन आपके माइंड में इमीडिएटली आना चाहिए स्टूडेंट्स। क्या स्टूडेंट्स आप मुझे बता सकते हैं कि व्हाट इज द सेक्शन इन्वॉल्व इफ देयर इज ब्लॉक्ड डिस्कशन ऑफ ब्लॉक्ड आईटीसी? यस स्टूडेंट्स, यस नम्रता ने लिखा सीए पीयूष। यस नम्रता, अगर आपने नोट्स में व्हेन आई वाज एक्सप्लेनिंग टू यू अगर आपने लिखा है वहां पे, तभी आप एकदम से आप बता पाए कि पीयूष इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स एक्सपर्ट है। तो ये मैं आपको बता रहा हूं कि ये तरीका है आपका केस स्टडी को हैंडल करने का। यस स्टूडेंट्स, आई एम वेटिंग फॉर योर आंसर्स कि ब्लॉक आईटीसी आपने पढ़ा है। आईटीसी आई अंडरस्टैंड आपने पढ़ा 17.5, वेरी गुड आंसर्स। तो नम्रता ने आंसर दिया है, प्रसाद हैज करेक्टली आंसर्ड, मुजीब हैज करेक्टली आंसर्ड। नम्रता यू आर सेइंग 17 ही दो। प्रभजोत कौर 17.5 बिल्कुल करेक्ट सेक्शन आपने बताया, 17 सबसेक्शन 5 है इसका, ब्लॉक्ड आईटीसी का। सो इसमें ब्लॉक आईटीसी से क्वेश्चन क्या पूछ रहा है वो हम अभी आगे देखेंगे। आईजीटी प्राइवेट लिमिटेड, नेक्स्ट पैरा, एक्सप्रेस विलिंगनेस ही इज वांटेड टू हैंडल, पीयूष मक्कड़ वांटेड टू हैंडल वन क्लाइंट IGT प्राइवेट लिमिटेड which is having good volume of turnover and it is also a renowned client. So कुछ डाटा आगे दिया है जीएसटी से रिलेटेड, आप देखेंगे नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ में। IGT Private Limited is in business of manufacturing of textile products. Accounts team of the company is not much aware about GST law. Earlier, GST work of the company was being taken care by some other professional. Now it is being handled by Kapoor and Company. Now Piyush Makkar, he is coming forward to support the company on ITC related matters. Now the data which is given is in respect of February 2000, in respect of the month February 2024, goods purchased without invoice 40,000, input tax paid, उसमें ये ITC इनपुट टैक्स जो उसका पेमेंट हुआ है 40,000 पे हुआ है, इनपुट टैक्स जो पे हुआ है। और परचेज ऑफ गुड्स टू बी यूज फॉर बिजनेस पर्पज, उसका आईटीसी है 20,000। परचेज ऑफ गुड्स, तो ये डिफरेंट पॉइंट स्टूडेंट्स दिए हुए हैं। परचेज ऑफ गुड्स फ्रॉम सेठी लॉल एंड सन्स, इनवॉइस रिसीव्ड इन द मंथ ऑफ फेब्रुअरी बट गुड्स वर नॉट रिसीव्ड इन द मंथ ऑफ मार्च 24। तो यहां पे कंडीशंस ऑफ सेक्शन, जो कि कंडीशंस एंड एलिजिबिलिटी ऑफ जीएसटी, तो आपके माइंड में आना चाहिए कौन सा सेक्शन आपके माइंड में आईटीसी का आना चाहिए। यस आई एम वेटिंग फॉर योर आंसर्स। एलिजिबिलिटी एंड कंडीशंस के लिए स्टूडेंट्स आपके माइंड में कौन सा सेक्शन आना चाहिए। यस आई एम वेटिंग फॉर योर आंसर्स। सेक्शन 16, वेरी गुड। मुजीब ने आंसर दिया है ऋषि किशन एज पर सेक्शन 16, यस। तो एलिजिबिलिटी एंड कंडीशंस फॉर टेकिंग आईटीसी सेक्शन 16 में इलेबोरेटेड है। सो इसमें स्टूडेंट्स पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल इक्विपमेंट यूज्ड इन द फैक्ट्री, उसका आईटीसी इट इज कैपिटलाइज्ड इन इट्स बुक्स। अब ये कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स, अगर आप यहां पे कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स जो है, बड़े इंपॉर्टेंट वर्ड्स हैं, क्या आप बता सकते हैं इन वर्ड्स की क्या इंपॉर्टेंस है? कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स, इन वर्ड्स की क्या इंपॉर्टेंस है? यस, एनी स्टूडेंट हु कैन टेल मी अबाउट दिस? यस, एनी स्टूडेंट हु कैन आंसर कि कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स जो लिखा है इसकी क्या इंपॉर्टेंस क्या है? ये कहीं पे डायरेक्टली किसी सेक्शन में आते हैं। मोटर लॉरीज यूज्ड फॉर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स। इलेक्ट्रिकल ट्रांसफॉर्मर यूज्ड इन द फैक्ट्री, कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द, देखो बार बार लिखिए ये बात। तो कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स की क्या रेलेवेंस है स्टूडेंट्स? यस, कुछ स्टूडेंट्स ने बताने की कोशिश की है। ये मैं आपको बता देता हूं कि ये कैपिटल गुड्स की डेफिनेशन के अंदर ही लिखा हुआ है कि कैपिटल गुड्स सेक्शन 2 की 19th क्लॉज के अंदर डिफाइंड है, कैपिटल गुड्स मींस गुड्स द वैल्यू ऑफ विच इज कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट ऑफ द पर्सन हु इज क्लेमिंग द आईटीसी, विच इज, तो अगर आप सेक्शन 2 की 19th क्लॉज स्टूडेंट्स देखेंगे तो उसमें डिफाइंड है, कैपिटल गुड्स मींस गुड्स द वैल्यू ऑफ विच इज कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट ऑफ द पर्सन क्लेमिंग द आईटीसी एंड विच आर यूज्ड और इंटेंडेड टू बी यूज्ड इन द कोर्स और फर्दरेंस ऑफ बिजनेस। तो ये आपके माइंड में इमीडिएटली आना चाहिए कि ये कैपिटल गुड्स हैं, और अगर ये कैपिटल गुड्स हैं तो कैपिटल गुड्स का उसके बाद आपके दिमाग में क्या आना चाहिए, सेक्शन 16 सब सेक्शन 3 आ जाना चाहिए, जिसके अंदर ये लिखा हुआ है कि अगर आपने इनकम टैक्स का डेप्रिसिएशन ले लिया तो आपको फिर उसका आईटीसी नहीं मिलेगा। वो अभी बातें हम करेंगे सारी। यस स्टूडेंट्स, capital goods to be used as parts purchased from supplier paying tax under the composition scheme, and such composite tax has not been collected from IGT private limited by the supplier. Molds and dies used in the factory, ये भी capitalized in the books, यहाँ पे हम assume करेंगे इसमें स्टूडेंट्स ये भी capitalized because ये capital goods ही होते हैं। Company buys cement tiles and avails the services of an architect फॉर द कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ इट्स। तो ये पूरी केस स्टडी स्टूडेंट हमने रीड आउट कर ली है। इसमें जीएसटी आईटीसी से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन आएंगे, लॉ के क्वेश्चन, स्मॉल शेयर होल्डर डायरेक्टर, देन वुमेन डायरेक्टर। निशा मैडम और कौन से क्वेश्चन आएंगे?
Sir, basically we are covering here only these two legal provisions on the small shareholder directors as well as the women directors. How small shareholder director is important within the the board constituted under the company to regulate its operations basically, and what is the necessity of being appointed the women director, since we all know that now the companies had shifted its focus on the corporate governance part. So corporate governance basically is the system by which company is controlled and directed, और साथ ही उसमें ट्रांसपेरेंसी ली जाती है, एंड दे आर द बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द गवर्नेंस ऑफ देयर कंपनीज। तो वहां पे ये देखा जाता है बेसिकली कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस में कि हु हैव द पावर, देन हु इज अकाउंटेबल एंड हु मेक्स द डिसीजन। सो इसको रेगुलेट करने के लिए जो बोर्ड बनता है, बोर्ड के अंदर कौन कौन से डायरेक्टर्स होंगे, तो हियर इन दिस case study we shall be discussing on two types of the directors, that is the small shareholder director as well the women directors.
ग्रेट। तो दो तरह के क्वेश्चन इसमें आएंगे। स्मॉल शेयर होल्डर, जैसा कि निशा मैडम ने कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस के बारे में आपको बताया, और स्मॉल शेयर होल्डर डायरेक्टर एंड वुमेन डायरेक्टर के भी क्वेश्चन इसमें आएंगे। प्रोबेबली केस स्टडी पढ़ के निशा मैडम ने आपको ये बताया कि इस तरह के क्वेश्चन आ सकते हैं। यस डिम्पल, आप स्टूडेंट्स को बताएं कि ये केस स्टडी पढ़ के कौन से क्वेश्चंस इनकम टैक्स के पूछे जा सकते हैं प्रोबेबल।
So there are two types of things. One is regarding the job work, which a company has done from Khushi Limited, because the company is claiming that they are not liable to deduct TDS. So they just want to make sure कि whether they are required to make deduct TDS, deduct tax for this payment. And the second one, which relates to regarding the depreciation, because company has purchased one machinery and some part they have made through loan. So I guess there will be a question regarding depreciation and the interest deduction, how the company can claim deduction for interest and depreciation, whether the company is eligible to claim the interest deduction for full year or for part of the year, how depreciation will gonna impact on this. So I guess all these questions related to direct tax can be asked from this case study in the questions.
ग्रेट स्टूडेंट्स, तो आपने देखा कि आपको फैकल्टीज ने ये समझाया कि केस स्टडी पढ़ के हम कौन से प्रोबेबल क्वेश्चंस हैं जो हम केस स्टडी में कम अक्रॉस कर सकते हैं। सो दीज आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग्स स्टूडेंट्स। व्हेनेवर यू फिनिश द केस स्टडी, फर्स्ट रीड द केस स्टडी थॉरोली, और जल्दी ना करें, केस स्टडी आराम से पढ़ें, ब्रीफ नोट साथ में बना लें जो कि आपको हेल्प करेंगे केस स्टडी के क्वेश्चंस को आंसर करने के लिए। जैसा कि अभी फैकल्टीज ने आपको समझाया कि कौन से प्रोबेबल क्वेश्चंस हैं जो केस स्टडी में आगे पूछे जा सकते हैं। तो मूविंग टू द क्वेश्चन पार्ट, शुड वी मूव डिंपल?
Yes sir.
मैडम?
Yes sir.
यस। एमसीक्यू, फर्स्ट एमसीक्यू स्टूडेंट्स, with reference to information given in the table regarding payments on account of job work to Khushi Limited, which one of the below option is correct in respect of the amount on which TDS is required to be deducted under the provisions of the Income Tax Act? तो इनकम टैक्स का क्वेश्चन स्टूडेंट्स टीडीएस से रिलेटेड, और हमने पूरी टेबल उसमें क्वेश्चन में बना के अभी हमने देखा था उसे, जहां पे मैंने आपको बताया था आप टोटल भी लगा लो उसका। सो डिम्पल मैडम आपको डिटेल में समझाएंगे कि क्या कौन से प्रोविजन इनकम टैक्स के लगेंगे और कैसे हम एमसीक्यू को एनालाइज करेंगे। ओवर टू डिम्पल। डिम्पल।
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Student, while reading the MCQ, you just got to know that the question is asking about the TDS provision on this job work which we have done from Khushi Limited. So the question is, what is the requirement of the question? Be very careful about the requirement. What is the question asking for? In this, the question is asking in respect of the amount on which TDS is required to be deducted. So there are two questions arises from that. One is whether the company is liable to deduct tax at source, or if the company is liable to deduct tax at source, then on which amount company is liable to deduct. So for that, we have to go again back to the case study where the facts related to this job work is given. So that is given in page number 2. It is very important, student, that you have to know whether where the facts related to the MCQs are given, because you can't again go through the case study, whole case study. So as sir rightly said that you have to make a note ki this paragraph or this information is related to income tax, GST or law, so that you can just go to that particular fact after reading the MCQ. So in the first paragraph on page number 2, what is written? It is written that company is making payment for job work excluding material cost to Khushi Limited for the financial year 2023-24 towards work done under different contracts. So there are 5 contracts. Payment for first contract was done on 15th May, then 4th June, 8th July, 9th September, and 26th January 2024. What is the company claiming? Company is claiming that it is not liable for deduction of tax at source. So first, we have to analyze in which section, if the company that related to that work which company has done, job work, for that under which section company is liable to deduct tax at source. Then we will go whether actually company is required. Is there any exemption? Is there any threshold limit? So for which the company is not liable. So we have to analyze the section which is the relevant section in this. So for job work, what is the relevant section? Student, sir has already told regarding this key what is the relevant section for job work under TDS. Come on, students. Yes, Namrata, yeah, it's 194C. Yes, Geeta, it's 194C. So just let me go through to you regarding 194C. What 194C section says? The 194C section of Income Tax Act says, where any person is making payment to resident, contractor or subcontractor. Why you are making payment to contractor or subcontractor? For any work under a contract between them. So it means when the two party has a contract and you are making payment to a resident contractor or subcontractor for that work, then the person is required to deduct tax at source under section 194C. Are the all person who are making payment for this work are liable to deduct tax at source? Yeah, company, if the person making the payment is a company, firm, trust, then your local authority, central state government, everybody is required to deduct tax at source under section 194C if they are making for the payment. But in case of individual There are four things: 4% individual, HUF, AOP, and BOI. In this 4%, if they are making payment for contract for work under a contract to any contractor or subcontractor, they will be required to deduct tax at source under section 194C only when the sales, turnover, or gross receipt from the business they are carrying. If they are carrying any business, then the sales, turnover, or gross receipt from that business exceeds rupees 1 crore. And if they are engaging the profession, then gross receipt exceed rupees 50 lakhs. So student, this limit 1 crore and 50 lakhs, we have to see for which year? For this current year when they are making payment, for the earlier year, or for the whole year from the incorporation incorporation of their business. For which year we have to see this limit? Tell me students, we have to see this limit for the current year when they are making the payment, or for which year we have to see this sales, turnover, or gross receipt limit? Our current previous year for May 24 examination is previous year 2023-24. So we have to see this limit for 2023-24 or for earlier previous year or for all the previous year.
Mujib has answered preceding to the previous year.
Correct. Mujib has also answered, and Geeta is also answered. Yes, Geeta and Mujib, both you are right. We have to see this sales, turnover, and gross receipt limit for the year preceding the previous year in which you are making the payment for the contract. So you have to see this limit for the previous year 2022-23. So this condition is for individual, HUF, AOP, and BOI, not for company, firm, trust. They are required to deduct TDS under section 194C while making a payment, subject to the threshold limit and other condition, but this limit will not be applicable to other persons. Got it, student? Then when they are required.
Students, are you noticing कि कितनी आपको डिटेल में जाके डिम्पल मैडम समझा रहे हैं? Students, ये चीज चाहिए. This is required at the final level. So this kind of clarity of thought, if you are having, so I suppose this handling of this paper will not be difficult for you. Yes, Dimple madam, you can go ahead.
Yes, sir. Namrata, this limit, if suppose I am saying ki Mr. A, there is a person, Mr. A, and he is engaging some manufacturing business or trading some business, he is into some business, manufacturing or trading, whatever it is he is in business. And he is making payment to, suppose, a company ABC Limited for some work done by ABC Limited. Then whether the TDS while making the payment, whether Mr. A is required to deduct tax at source under section 194C on this work, we have to see, because he is an individual and he is in the business, we have to see whether his sales, turnover, or gross receipt exceeds rupees 1 crore. In which year, if he is making payment, the work is for previous year 2023-24, then we have to see this limit for previous year 2022-23. It means we have to see this limit for the preceding previous year. There is no relation to your audit limit under section 44AB. There is a fixed prescribed limit of 1 crore in case of business and 50 lakhs in case of professions. We are not required to see whether the person is required to do the tax audit or not. The threshold limit is fixed, 1 crore for business and 50 lakhs for profession. So if Mr. A's last year sales, turnover, gross receipt exceed 1 crore, he is required to deduct tax at source under section 194C subject to the limit of contract. That will be dealt later on. So now what is the next point? Next point, we are saying work. What is work actually? What all these things include work? Work includes your advertising, your catering service, your broadcasting, your transportation of goods or passenger by transportation of goods or passenger by any mode except railways. And the important thing, one of the important thing is manufacturing or supplying of a product as per the specification of the customer by using the material purchased from that customer or by using material from that customer or associate is associated. So it means, what can I say? If suppose you have provided raw material to other person for contract to some manufacturing according to your requirement. Suppose you have a material and you given to the other person that material to do some work on that and give it back to you. If you are supplying the material, that will be covered under work. But you are not providing the material. Suppose you are not providing the material, you are just going to the contractor and you are just saying for the job work, you are saying that this is my specification, I want the product like this, and you have to purchase this product, the material, the raw material from the other person. And you have to put some my logo and some all these things on that material and just supply me that finished products. So whether that will be covered under work? No, that will be a contract for sale, not job work. So in that case, if it's a contract for sale, then there will be no TDS under section 194C because the person is not doing the job not doing the job on the material which is supplied by you, but the person is purchasing the raw material from some other person, and whatever the specification you are telling, he is manufacturing according to that and just transferring with the finished goods. So it's a sale, not a job work. So in this case, what we will say in this case, whether what is this? It is mentioned that it's a job work. So it is not mentioned who is providing the raw material. In this case, suppose if your company, your SSC, Agresen Spinner Limited, if the company is providing the material to Khushi Limited and they are telling some specification on that, then only 194C will be attractive. Otherwise, 194C will not be attracted in this case. So this is the definition of work. Now, what is the percentage of tax which is required to be deducted by Agresen in this case? If you are making the payment to a resident contractor, I have already told you that in case of a resident contractor only, TDS under section 194 will be attracted. If you are making a payment to non-resident, TDS will not be deducted. So if you are making payment to a contractor who is an individual or HUF, then what would be the rate of TDS, students? You must have read this in your core paper. If the contractor is an individual or HUF, then what would be the rate of TDS? Come on, answer, students. Namrata, Geeta, Mansha. Yeah. Yes, Mujib, Namrata, Prabjot,
Geeta.
Geeta, everyone is right. It's 1%. And if the payment is to a contractor other than these two, then it will be 2%. So this is the rate. Now, what is the next thing? Next thing which matters in this case, it's a threshold limit. It means whether in all cases the person who is responsible for making the payment, they have to deduct TDS, or is there a threshold limit that only if that limit exceed, then they are required to deduct tax at source? Yeah, there is a threshold limit, students, and the threshold limit is of 30,000. 30,000 is what? For a single contract. Suppose you have made one contract with some ABC, and the payment which we are making for that contract doesn't exceed 30,000, then the person is not required to deduct TDS on that contract payment. So what the companies or what the other taxpayers do, they just split their contract in such a manner that for each contract, the threshold limit does not exceed 30,000. So by way of this, what they do, they just skip paying deducting tax at source. So what the government has said that if the payment which you are making for single contract does not exceed 30,000, then you are not required to deduct tax at source. But if for all contracts, all contracts means aggregate of all the contracts during the relevant previous year which we are talking about, if it does not exceed rupees 1 lakh, then also you are not required to deduct tax at source. It means there are two conditions. For each contract, you have to see the limit of 30,000, and for aggregate all the contract, you have to see the limit of 1 lakh. Suppose if one of the limit exceed either 30,000 or 1 lakh, the person is required to deduct tax at source. Yes, Prasad, for individual contract, suppose there are one contract of 40,000, then required to deduct TDS. If the single contract is of 25,000, there is no requirement to deduct tax at source. But in that case, we have to see the subsequent contract amount also. If the aggregate of all the contract amount exceed 1 lakh, then in spite of that individual contract ki value is not exceeding 30,000, the person has to deduct tax at source in that case. So now we again go back to our case study. What our case study says? There are 5 contracts. One is for 22,000, then 15,000, 23,000, 25,000, 18,000. Already sir has made the calculation that if you aggregate all this contract value, it comes to 1,03,000. So what happened in that case? The company has very carefully made the contract of each contract of less than 30,000, but the aggregate limit exceed rupees 1 lakh. So what will happen in this case? Whether the company is right, they are not liable to deduct tax at source. No, company is not right. Company is required to deduct tax at source in this case because the aggregate limit of 1 lakh exceed in respect of the contract which the company made with the one person, that is Khushi Limited. Ma'am, if the aggregate, Shankara is asking, ma'am, if the aggregate amount is exactly 1 lakh, student, in this case, in all the limits, you have to be very careful. I have already told you, if the threshold limit is 30,000, it's less than or equal to 30,000. So if the amount is exact 30,000 or exact 1 lakh, then there will be no requirement of TDS. It will be happen only if it exceeds the threshold limit, exceed 30,000 for single contract and exceed 1 lakh aggregating of all the contract during the previous year. Got it, Shankara? Yeah, Mujib has correctly mentioned no. No, the company has to deduct. Yes, Namrata. If the contract amount is rupees 50,000, the payment is made 25,000, then this section will apply or not? Yeah, Namrata, very good question. Because in 194C, I have told you what is the rate, when you are required to deduct TDS, what is the threshold limit, who all are required to deduct TDS. But the question arises when you are required to deduct tax. So while crediting the person, the contractor, in your books of accounts, or while you are making payment for that amount, whichever is earlier, you have to deduct. Suppose you have made the entry in your books of accounts for that contract which we have given, then you have to deduct tax at that point of time only. And if you are making the advance payment, if that is before the credit in your books of accounts, then you have to deduct tax at source that time. So as you ask, Namrata, if the contract amount is 50,000, so you have, while you are crediting the amount in your books of accounts for that contractor, you have to deduct tax at source at that point of time only, because it exceeds the threshold of 30,000. You are making payment in different point of time, like 5,000, 20,000, then again 20,000. That's a subsequent transaction. If you are crediting the amount firstly, then you have to see the limit at that point of time only. So now again to the case study. So in this case, the company is required to deduct tax at source. So what is the question? What is the requirement of question? Now again back to the MCQ. What the MCQ asked, in respect of what amount in which TDS is required. So the question is asking whether the company is required to, we have got the answer that company is required to deduct tax at source, but on what amount? Whether 18,000 as the MCQ asked, only on 3,000, on 1,03,000, on which amount? The threshold limit, what is the role of threshold limit? Threshold limit is 30,000 and 1 lakh. If that doesn't mean, it means ki if the contract value is suppose 35,000, then you have to deduct tax at source on 5,000. It means exceeding 30,000. Is the section says no. The section says ki if the contract value does not exceed 30,000, then you are not required to deduct tax at source. But if it exceeds by even a single rupee, then you have to deduct tax on the whole amount, not on the amount exceeding that threshold limit. Threshold limit is just for the applicability of that section. It is not, threshold limit is not for the amount on which you are required to deduct tax at source. So if it exceeds, suppose the contract value is 35,000, then you have to deduct tax at source on 35,000, not on 5,000. So the first option, what it says, TDS is not required to be deducted as each contract amount does not exceed threshold limit. It's incorrect because we have to see each contract amount ke saath saath we have to see the aggregate threshold limit also. So first option is incorrect. TDS is only required to be deducted on contract 5, that is 18,000. No, as I have already told, ki if it exceeds the threshold limit of 30,000 on 1 lakh, TDS is required to be deducted on the whole amount. So this option is also incorrect. Now I just come to the option D. TDS is required to be deducted only on 3,000. It means the amount exceeding the 1 lakh limit. No, this is also incorrect. TDS is required to be deducted on the whole amount, that is rupees 1,03,000. This is the correct option. But how you will deduct tax TDS in this on this 1,03,000? While you have made the payment of 20,000, you don't know that the aggregate threshold limit will exceed. So you will not deduct TDS here. You will not deduct tax here. You will not deduct tax here, because at this point of time, what will your aggregation? That will be 37,000. While you are making this payment, your aggregation will be 50,000. While you are making this payment, your aggregation is 85,000. So you are very sure that the single contract payment doesn't exceed 30,000. So I'm not liable to deduct tax at source. Up to that time, your aggregate was 85,000. So you are not required to deduct tax at source. So you have not deducted tax at source in respect of this 4 contract. But while you have entered for this 5 contract and you are making payment for 18,000, which makes it to 1,03,000, now you are aware that you have to deduct tax at source. So while this payment you are making, you have to deduct tax at source on before paying this amount to Khushi Limited, but you have to deduct tax at source on this whole amount, not on this 18,000. So you will deduct 2% because contractor is a company. You have to deduct tax at source at the rate of 2%, which would be 2,060, and you will deduct 2,060 rupees tax from this 18,000, and you will pay the balance amount. The balance amount you will pay to the Khushi Limited. This is not the requirement of the question, but I am just briefing you what would be the situation if they ask the amount of TDS. So you have to deduct TDS on 1,03,000, which will be deducted from this last payment, and the balance payment will be made to Khushi Limited.
Great
Corporate student, is there any doubt for this MCQ or for section 194C? I try to brief you regarding the 194C, all the possible things regarding the threshold limit, regarding the rate of tax, what is work.
Great explanation, Dimple madam. Great explanation, excellent explanation, wonderful explanation. I think
Thank you so
आपने
much.
194C का कोई कोना भी नहीं छोड़ा है. तो स्टूडेंट्स आप देख रहे हैं कितनी डीपली जाकर डिम्पल मैडम ने आपको ये समझाया है, और इससे अब आई थिंक 194C पे अगर कोई भी क्वेश्चन आएगा यू वुड बी एबल टू आंसर. आपके कोर पेपर में आएगा तो भी आप आंसर कर दोगे. तो स्टूडेंट्स ये चीज देखो, अब इस तरह से आप केस स्टडी को हैंडल करें जैसे मैडम ने आपको बहुत अच्छे एक्सप्लेन करके समझाया है. आई थिंक इट इज एक्सलेंट एक्सप्लेनेशन डिम्पल मैडम. बहुत
Thank you
अच्छा
so
आपने
much,
समझाया
sir.
है डिम्पल मैडम.
Thank you, Geeta, for understanding. And Namrata, Prasad, Shankara, if you have any doubt on this section 194C, then just let me know. Otherwise, we just move forward to the second MCQ.
सेकेंड एमसीक्यू स्टूडेंट्स अभी जीएसटी से रिलेटेड है, तो इसका डिस्क्रिप्टिव क्वेश्चन भी है. तो दिस क्वेश्चन इज ऑन ब्लॉक्ड आईटीसी. तो 17.5 पे ये क्वेश्चन है, तो मैं उसको उसके साथ ही लूंगा जो. तो वी विल टेक द 2 क्वेश्चंस टुगेदर. फर्स्ट वी विल मूव टू थर्ड क्वेश्चन which is on company law. Yes, Nisha madam.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, dear students, already told you that law is a very interesting subject because many facts are given there in the case studies. Then you have to find out what are the relevant information over there. If you see in this case study in specific, so you will be finding that the paragraph 3rd of the case study given over talks about what is all the relevant thing. You will see that case study 3rd talks about the nature of the company. First, you should see what is the nature of the company, whether it's a listed company or whether it is a public company, only just the public company, or a private company. Because under the Companies Act, you must be finding that the provisions are at some extent made exempted on certain condition on the certain types of the companies. So you have to first watch out or just to make out which nature of the companies is talking about. So here in the case study, you will be seeing that nature of the company is with respect to the companies for which they have went for, for guidance was the company Vallabh Cotton Limited. So yes, let's go to the relevant paragraph in order to understand how you can correlate with the legal provision over there, which relevant provision is applicable. So let's see the paragraph 3rd over here. Yes, here it is very well given that Vallabh Cotton Limited. Yes, the Vallabh Cotton Limited is a listed company. This is what first I tried to explain you. You have to make out which nature of the company is it. So here it is the listed company. This is one important information given over there in the paragraph. Then next, what it says about, yes, there were some issues going in the company and they were looking forward for the appointment of small shareholder director. This is again the second relevant information in this case study. They were looking forward for the appointment of SSD, that is the small shareholder director. Then what the next thing is given over there? They just went to the expert, that is Rajesh Dhamija, for asking about the appointment of small shareholder director as well of the appointment of women director. Again, you can be finding this is the third important information, okay, with respect to the appointment of women director. So these are the three things that has been required. Yes, you need to appoint SSD as well as the women director, and the company is the listed company. So somewhere you have to jot on these important aspects, because whenever any information is given in the case study, so it must be having some relevance while in the question also. So after that, you will be seeing that certain data is given with respect to small shareholder directors. They are saying, yes, the company has this equity shares of 10,000 of 10 rupees each. That is okay, one information. Second, another important information is given that they are having 500 small shareholders. This is with respect to small shareholders, because they are talking about there are 500 small shareholders. And then it's said further that majority, yani ki out of 500, 400 shareholders want to appoint Mr. Brijesh as a director, okay, in the board of directors. And you'll be seeing already the person who has been proposed to be appointed as SSD, he is also holding the shares, that is 10,000 equity shares in the said company. So these are all the important aspects within the provided information. So you have to first find out what are the relevant information. So once you are able to find out on which particular the question is referring, the aspect, then you have to just recall, yes, which is that relevant section to which this in all information pertains to. So when we talk about the board of directors, definitely the small shareholder directors, the women directors, these are all the directors which are being formed the part of the board of the company. So when we talk about the board of the company, you must be seeing that, yes, the relevant sections that you should need to have understanding. Yes, the relevant section first, the section 149 of the Companies Act 2013 clearly talks about the board of directors. Yes, dear friends, board of directors. As already said, for corporate governance, some body is required to regulate the operation of the company. Because we all know that company is a artificial person, is a legal entity. It does not have any physical body or its mind to work on. So someone is required to carry on the functioning of the company, to regulate the operations of the company. So yes, it's the human being. So who is that human being? Of course, the directors. The directors are the human beings who forms, collectively a board to regulate the operations of the company. So basically, board of director as per section 149, it's properly defined under the Companies Act. What is the board of directors? It says it is a collective body of directors, okay, in the company. So this is board of directors. And when we talk about the board of directors, we are finding another terminology, the directors. Again, the director itself is defined in the Companies Act. It says directors means the directors who are appointed in the board of company. So they are properly appointed. Those who are appointed, only those persons will be considered as directors. And directors are individuals. Please remember that point. They are individuals. So through these persons, through these directors who are collectively forming a board, they will function and regulate the operations of the company. So this is about the board of directors. So in a board of directors, if you see, there are various directors, because board of directors is comprised of number of the directors over there to look after the functioning of the companies. And whenever any decision is taken in any of the meetings, it is not the director who is taking the decision. It is the board, my dear friends, who is taking the decision. So that is very important thing, the board. The board is not comprising of single director. It is comprising of many directors to look upon the working of the company. So if you see that there are various kinds of directors, as already told you, one is the director who looks after the policy making. This is one kind of the specific type of the directors in the board who looks after the policy making. Then the next category of the director with the person who looks after the business of the company, day-to-day affairs of the company, how the company will be working, what are the relevant aspects that need to be decided, the decisions may be taken. So that part is being considered by another category of the directors who are known as executive directors, right? Then you will be seeing another category of the directors where certain person represents. They are the director, they are the categories of the director who represent either, you can say, certain categories of the shareholders, or they will be representing any entity or the body whose interest is being there in the company. So there are three categories of the directors. The whole board is divided within these three types of the directors. You can distinguish in order to understand that board is comprised of many directors to just to regulate the functioning of the companies. So if after considering the nature of the directors, as already said, this is basically on the basis of the role they are doing in the board. If they are involved in the policy decisions, then definitely they are the non-executive directors. They are not involved in day-to-day functioning of the companies. And if they are involved in the day-to-day affairs of the companies, so yes, they are the executive directors. And if they are the directors who have been nominated and appointed by certain entities or the bodies in order to protect or safeguard their interests lying in the companies, then they are maybe in the nature of nominee directors. Or if they are representing certain class of the shareholders, so they may be in the nature of either minority shareholder or the small shareholder directors. And apart from that, there are other categories of the directors also, like additional directors, alternate directors, independent directors. These are all the directors which are falling in all these three specified categories in one way or the other, according to the functions they are performing within the board. So now just considering about the small shareholder director, because if you have seen in the case study, we have just given the information that they just want to appoint the women director as well as the SSD, that is the small shareholder director. But before I just go into the legal provision detail in order to bring the clarity about the small shareholder director, I would like to just bring before you an important decision of the Supreme Court. That was, yes, it was the Tata Mystery judgment, which was given by the Supreme Court, which has spotted, the rights of the small shareholder directors, what has been given under Section 151 of the Companies Act 2013. When a small shareholder director is being discussed, simply by name it reveals that small shareholders means somewhere they are specifically representing a certain class of the shareholders. Yes, the small shareholders. Here the small shareholders, they appoint themselves to protect their interests within the, within the companies. They are able to represent in the board. So that way they just appoint certain person for themselves to represent before the board as in small shareholder directors. So Section 151 talks about which company can appoint the small shareholder director. Plus, they will talk about how they can appoint the shareholder directors, right? So basically, it talks about, if you see Section 151, it should be first of all read with Rule 7 of the Companies Act, Appointment and Qualification of Director Rules 2014. So one should try to retain important sections, because if you are able to retain the main section is 151. I'm not talking about subsection 1, 2, 3, 151 subsection 1, 151 subsection 2. No, I'm not emphasizing on the learning of that particular subsection, but yes, I'm talking about the main section, yes, 151. The 151 talks about the small shareholder director, where it talks clearly about who can appoint small shareholder directors. Then it also reveals how. Yani means procedure. How SLC can be appointed. Then various other informations related to its eligibility criteria, in how many companies they can be appointed, what is the term for their appointments, And in case if they are of independent directors of the nature or not, if they are appointed, if they are having the eligibility criteria as of an independent director, whether the SSD can be considered as independent director. So other information has also been highlighted and given under the section 151 when it is read with the rule 7, because the other information pertaining to the SSD is given under rule 7. So you cannot singly either read the rule 7 and then give the answers. That is not possible at all. So you have to read this specific section along with the rules to have an understanding of the legal provision in its entirety. I'm telling you, mark my words, in entirety, it's required to read the complete section with the rules, because now the Companies Act is rule-based legislation. So everything is not given in the act. Something more information related to its procedural part or something related to its appointment, some other kind of the information pertaining to that particular smallest director or related to any of the legal provision which is forming the main part of the act has been now given under the rules. So you have to read the act plus rules wherever so required in order to understand the entire law. Then only you will be able to answer and to give in a proper manner the appropriate answer of any of the questions. Right? Now, as I was discussing about the judgment, Tata Mystery judgment. It is very famous decision of the Supreme Court.
Nisha madam,
Yes, sir.
1 minute, one query I am taking.
Yes,
You may
sir.
also answer that question.
Yes, sir.
I think Namrata is asking, ma'am, in exam where we should make the notes as it is not allowed to write on the question paper. रफ शीट मेरे ख्याल से मिलती है या नहीं मिलती निशा मैडम?
रफ शीट क्वेश्चन पेपर में आंसर शीट में एंड में होती है. इट्स देयर एट द एंड ऑफ द आंसर शीट सर.
वर्किंग के लिए बिकॉज अकाउंट्स एफआर वगैरह पेपर होते हैं, एएफएम है, एडवांस फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट है, अकाउंटेंसी है, कॉस्टिंग है, रफ वर्क तो कहीं स्टूडेंट कर ही सकता है आई सपोज.
सर जो वर्किंग आपका जो रफ शीट होती है एट द एंड ऑफ द आंसर शीट, देयर दे कैन डू दिस वर्किंग एंड इफ रिक्वायर्ड दे कैन आल्सो जस्ट come matlab they can keep in mind also some picture may be drawn to, yes, this is the relevant paragraph pertaining to this particular act. That could be done. Or rest every information is given on the question paper. It should be read properly. If something writing on the paper is though not allowed, but yes, through pencil they can mark it, but afterwards they can just remove it, or at the end of the rough paper they can do the working.
Okay, in case of even we can talk to the exam people and then come back to the student.
Yes, sir. Okay, then moving further ahead, so in this Supreme Court decision, it was well said that Supreme Court observed and spotted under the section 151 of the Companies Act 2013 that it is only meant for the small shareholder directors and not on minority shareholder, because someone are confused, many are confused between these two terminologies, minority shareholder, okay, and other one is the small shareholders. So one should understand that these both are the different things. Small shareholder has been specifically defined under the Companies Act. It says that small shareholders are the shareholders who hold the shares of nominal value of rupees 20,000. This is clearly specified under section 151. So if that shareholder is holding this nominal value of shares, then he will be categorized under the small shareholders. And minority shareholders who is holding at least 10% or more of the shareholding in the company. That means though their shareholding is relatively not that much, as that is less than as that of the small shareholder director, but yes, it is not as much as that of small shareholders. That means it is having more than this 20,000 limit that has been specified under the act. So that is why there is a difference between the small shareholder as well as the minority shareholder, and this difference was demarcated under this special Supreme Court judgment, Tata Mystery judgment. So please just wherever you have your writing or you're making a notes, mark this important judgment, because this will definitely help you while reading and understanding of the concepts, because this judgment is also relevant in operation and mismanagement of the company. So there also you'll be referring to how this minority rights have been safeguarded under and how they can be differentiated from the small shareholder directors. So everything has been classified and given under this special decision. So you should just note down this important judgment of the Supreme Court. So in this case, they have come up that there was a difference between a minority shareholder as a class
1
and a
minute,
small
Nisha madam.
shareholders. And it has been said that
1
minority
minute, Nisha madam.
shareholding whose nominal value.
निशा मैडम,
Yes, sir.
1 minute. स्टूडेंट्स, मैं पहले भी आपको बताया, अगेन आई एम जस्ट asking you, once again I am requesting all students that very important things are being shared by the faculty, Nisha madam, and very wonderfully she is explaining, and minutely she is explaining, excellent explanation she is giving. Tata mystery judgment, then minority shareholder or small shareholder difference, executive director non. Students, these are all important things. आप सुन के और आपके माइंड में परमानेंट रह जाएंगे, आई बिलीव। और इतनी ब्यूटीफुली एक्सप्लेन की जा रही हैं स्टूडेंट्स ये चीजें, तो मैं आपको कहूंगा आप नोटबुक और पेन लेके रखोगे साथ में और नोट डाउन स्मॉल नोट्स बनाओगे तो आपके लिए बहुत आपको फायदा होने वाला है इन लेक्चर से। यस
Yes,
मैडम, यू कैन
Prasad.
कंटिन्यू, यू कैन
Yes,
कंटिन्यू।
yes, sir. Sir, Prashad is asking repeat small shareholder. Dear student, Prashad, I'm just telling you, refer section 151. It clearly specifies what should be the small shareholder's value. It specifies clearly over there, and it says that small shareholder is the shareholder who is holding the shares of nominal value of not more than 20,000 rupees. That means the amount is specified. If he's holding more than rupees 20,000, he is not a small shareholder. Okay. So it is clearly given not more than up to 20,000, he will be considered as a small shareholder. And when we talk about minority shareholder, so they will be said that these are the shareholders who are holding at least means minimum they are specifying that at least 10% or more of the shareholding in a company. So they are being considered as minority shareholders, right? And though potentially these minority shareholders can be blocked where nominal value share, however, this nominal share, this shareholding is there, it is not small enough to merit the applicability of section 151. That means though minor shareholding is not very much huge or relatively it is less in comparison to, you can say it is relatively less in comparison to the majority, of course, very much less than in comparison majority shareholders. But when we talk about in comparison with the small shareholders, so we can say there, then also it is not that much small or that much enough that it can be put under the category of section 151. So this is the difference between the minority as well as the small shareholder director, and this was being properly distinguished under this special judgment. Now let's talk about the important legal provision of these sections. First, let's take the facts again. Yes. So you are seeing here, what is given over here there? There are total 500 small shareholders, majority 400, who has suggested to appoint Mr. Brijesh as a director. Now, what the provision talks about? Let's first go with the provision and then I shall be telling you how these information will be correlated and then will be coming up with the solution to the answer. So what section 151 talks about? If you see section 151, yes. Now, if we see section 151, yes, then Shankara is asking, can you please explain the concept of small shareholder and minority shareholder concept? Already, Shankara, I've explained you the difference between a minority shareholder as well as small shareholder, right? There has been said there's a nominal value of shareholding of share that is limited up to 20,000 rupees will be considered as small shareholder, and where there is having at least shareholding of 10% or more, then they will be considered under the category of minority shareholders. This is the basic difference. Okay. Then next thing is that these small shareholders have, they can claim for the representation in the board, and that is why they have been specifically made a part under the Companies Act 2013, and they are representing under the board also as per section 151, and that is why they are, in order to safeguard the interest of the small shareholders, the directors are being appointed to represent them in the board. That is why one of the directors is small shareholder director also. Then next, Namrita is asking, can one shareholder be termed as a small shareholder? One shareholder, my dear friend, representation. What I said, not one shareholder, director will be appointed to represent the categories of the shareholders. Okay. So that way, if there is one shareholder, then in that case, if he is fulfilling the requirement of the number of this nominal holding of the shareholders, he can do it. But yes, there is a condition of representing their different class, this class of the small shareholder, they can represent or they can propose for the appointment of a person in the board. Then next question is asked by Mancha. Should we make an Excel sheet for law and costing to summarize by word, topics and page number? It is, dear friend, up to you, because you can also do one thing, but it's a nice way to learn the topics along with the section number. You can also take the index given at the front of the Bare Act. There you can take out the printout or you can note it down somewhere, the headings as well as you can see the section number. So that will give a little bit of, and as per if you remark the page number, just for your reference, which topic is given under which page number, I suppose it can work it for learning. It will help you while just sorting out the important sections at the time when you are solving these case studies. So it will definitely help you. Then Amit Ganguly is asking about minority shareholder can be a small shareholder. No, dear friends, it is not, because section 151 clearly only talks about the small shareholders director, and specifically their value has been defined. When a small shareholder can be considered as a small shareholder, their shareholding value has been specifically given under the section. Only then only if he is falling within that specific shareholding value, then only he will be considered as a small shareholder. I suppose it is clear to you the difference between the minority shareholder as well as small shareholder director. Now coming to the important aspect of section 151. Yes, it says that listed companies are eligible to appoint the SSD, as well as you can see it clearly says if there is, for listed companies, it is mandatory, first of all. And if there is another class of the companies, then they are specified other prescribed class of the companies in order to, wherever there is a requirement, yes, they are being required to appoint. But in the case of small shareholder, because if you see the women director or if you see the independent director, they are not only specified the listed company, but also the other specified class of the unlisted public companies. So there they have been specified the paid up capital as well as the requirement of turn up. You can say the annual turn up, whatever is the turn up is there, then accordingly they can decide. Yes, if they are falling within the prerogatives, within the prescribed limits, turnover as well as of the paid up share capital, then they can be appointed with respect to the other than the listed companies for the public companies. But when I'm talking about the SSD, remember what the sections talks about. Section talks about only of the listed companies. So that means, first of all, it should be a listed company. This is one of the important aspect. Only listed company. Why I have referred of the other companies? Because at many places it is also being given along with the listed company, the other prescribed class of the companies. So read the sections properly to understand the concepts. So it is listed companies, first of all, who can opt to appoint for SSD under section 151. Then further it talks about there shall be 1,000 who can appoint. Now the next question, the listed company is the company, which company can appoint? Which company can appoint? So this is the listed company. Now second, who can appoint? Then it is given over there. 1,000 small shareholders. 1,000 small shareholders or 1/10 of the total small shareholders. Who can appoint? 1,000 small shareholder or 1/10 of the total small shareholders. They can appoint or recommend for the election of the SSD. They will just propose to whom they want to appoint it. The next important requirement is of section 151 is that small shareholders who are intending to propose a person as a candidate for the post, they must notify the company within 14 days from the date of meeting. Means they must give at least 14 days prior notice yes, that we want to appoint the shareholders. So that should be mentioned properly, specifying the details of the person who has been proposed. Details. name, address, or with respect to any shareholding in the company. Okay, as well as the small shareholder who are proposing for the appointment, their details should also be given within the notice. The next important aspect is that even company can, on its own initiative also, they can appoint any small shareholder director. And also this is one of the things where certain shareholders propose. So this is how the proposal can be given for the appointment. This can be done. The next important aspect is that along with the statement, along with the notice, they have also to submit a statement of declaration. The declaration will be containing the proposed person's DIN number. Okay. Then it will be also giving that recommended candidate is not eligible to be appointed as a director. It must give that he is not disqualified in any of the way as per section 164 of the Companies Act 2013. Whatever the, that the eligibility criteria is given, he should be not falling within the disqualification criteria. He should be eligible to be appointed. So proper that recommendation should be given that he is not eligible to be appointed, is not containing any of the condition which will serve as an ineligibility for his appointment. Then next important condition is that the person whosoever is suggested to be appointed, his permission should be there that he is ready to act as a small shareholder director. This is the declaration should be there with the notice. And once all this information and the formalities has been complied with, the resolution for the appointment of the small shareholder is passed in the general meeting. Resolution is passed. So in that way, small shareholder director will be appointed. This is how the appointment of the director can be done. This is the important, all the relevant informations that you need to understand, and somewhere you should have understanding of the procedure so that you can easily solve any of the question related to the small shareholder directors. Further, next important information related to small shareholder directors are its term. So it shall be holding for, you can say, for 3 years. This is the maximum term that is specified for the small shareholder director. Okay. And it is also specifying one more important thing, that these directors are allowed to serve 2 companies at once, but not more than 2. Please remember that they can serve at one time only 2 companies, but not more than 2 companies. And there shall be a condition that small shareholder director cannot occupy the same position in a company that competes with the one in which he is currently representing. Please mark a note that in which second company he has been appointed, proposed to be appointed as a small shareholder director, shall not be in competition or shall not be competing in any of the way with the company in which presently he is shareholding. Yeah, he is appointed as a small shareholder director. So this needs to be remembered, because questions are generally being asked on this important aspect only, whether it related to its term or whether it may be related to whether he can occupy more than 2 companies or not. Okay. And in case whether a small shareholder director can be an independent director or not. Again, many times the questions has been asked on this important aspect also. So it says that yes, it is not mandatory, but yes, if he occupies or if he is eligible under the condition that has been specified for the person to be an independent director under section 149 subsection 6, if he is fulfilling all the requirements of the independent directors, then such small shareholder director can also be appointed as an independent director. Only the thing, if he complies with the conditions, whatever it is specified for the independent director. If he fulfills all that conditions, then yes, small shareholder director can also be an independent director. Only subject to the condition. Please remember that subject to the condition 149 subsection 6, whatever the condition is given, that condition is to be considered. Then these are the important things that I have brought before you the notice with respect to the small shareholder. Every important aspect, every important point has been covered. Now moving to this question to answer. Yes. Already you can see 500 and majority of who has proposed is 400. That means definitely it is more than 1/10 because the requirement is of 1000 or 1/10. So this is, you can apparently see it is more than 1/10 of the total small shareholder directors, because 1/10 of this total small shareholder will come to 50. So that way, if you see, it is complying this requirement, and they want to appoint Mr. Brijesh. Okay. So it has been said that he's already holding 10,000 equity shares in the company, but nowhere in the act talks about the person who is so proposed to be appointed with respect to his shareholding. Nowhere it has been defined. And no eligibility criteria has been defined whether a director to be appointed as a small shareholder should also be a small shareholder. Nowhere it is being defined. Okay. Now moving to the question, let's see. Yes. Now the question, what the question is given. A listed company may have one director elected by small shareholders. Now, because at least one small shareholder must be there. So that is why they have said कि one small shareholder. The provision and the provision. Yeah, the provision enables the small shareholders to place their representative on the board of directors of a listed company. Okay. So that the voice is also listened effectively. Now, small shareholders are entitled to give notice, right? To make appointment of small shareholders. Now, here you are seeing whether the question information is given. Now that this is the requirement, you have to focus on the requirement of the question. What is the requirement? Now it's asking whether 400 small shareholders of Vallabh Cotton Limited are in position to propose the appointment of Mr. Brijesh as a small shareholders director. So yes, what were the requirement for the proposal of being appointing any person as small shareholder director? So it was said that either 1000 small shareholders or 1/10 of the total small shareholder director. So here, if the notice is given by at least 1000 small shareholder or 1/10, then, and when these two values are given, you have to find out whichever is lower. In this case, you are seeing there are 500 shareholders total. So first of all, already the first conditions become the worth. It is of no use value, it is useless because it becomes trivial. It is of no use. Then second thing, the 1/10 of the total number, because since we are having 500 total, so 1/10 of it will be becoming the 50. Now, whichever is lower, of course, this 50. 50 is the lower one. So considering that, yes, here the number of the person who has proposed, they have complied with this requirement of 1/10 total number of shareholders. So without giving answer to this particular A part, now moving to the next part first. The second option, no, the notice may be given by at least 1000 small shareholder or 1/10 the total number of shareholder, whichever is higher. So this is what, here you can see the difference. Yes. Though the provision stated is given that 1000 against small shareholder of 1/10, but whichever is higher has been marked over here. This is against, this is against the compliance or the requirement of the law for the appointment of small shareholder. So you can see this, because of this usage of the word whichever is higher, this option gets wrong. Now the third option, the notice may be given at least by 1000 small shareholders. This is again a half provision. And considering, if you see, you will simply say, no, they cannot be obtained. There are only 500 shareholders. But as per the requirement of legal, you have to consider both the limits, and whichever limit is lower, then accordingly you have to go with the appointment of the smallholder share directors. The next last option is, yes, the notice may be given by at least 9/10 of the total number of the directors. Again, this is wrong as per the law. So in line with the requirement of law, first you have to read all the options. Sometimes it happens somewhere more appropriate answer is given below. Just by reading the first statement, you find, oh, this is as per the law, and you will mark it as correct. But dear friends, requested to kindly read the other options also in order to come with the most appropriate answer. So here in this given condition, as per the compliance of the law, yes, the option A is the most appropriate answer in its entirely what law has specifically specified. So here, yes, the notice may be given because it has been served by the lower prescribed limit, that is the 50, which is forming the 1/10 of the total number of the small shareholder director. And so here option A is the correct answer. Right? So now moving to the next question. I hope this is clear to you. Anyone, those who may have any sort of the issue in understanding of this particular provision, they may come up with your queries.
Namrata, Prasad, Amit, Manisha. I guess whatever the Nisha ma'am has told, she has briefed you so beautifully. The small shareholder, minority shareholder, small shareholder director, everything. So I hope you all are clear with these provisions of small shareholder and minority shareholders.
Yes, and Prashad is asking what is his percentage of shareholding in the company. If you're asking with respect to Mr. Brijesh, nowhere Act talks about the person who is proposed to be appointed as small shareholding director. They does not require with respect to the requirement of the number of holding of shares also. So that way nothing is specified in there. They can be having any number of the shareholding. This is only with respect to the small shareholders. The nominal value of shareholding is with respect to the small shareholders. Remember that. Not for the person who has been proposed to be appointed as their director, as their representative. So this percentage is not relevant and applicable for the person who is appointed as a director of the small shareholders. So I hope it is clear to you, Prashad. Yes.
So now we move to the next MCQ. The next MCQ is related to direct tax. What the MCQ asks for, it's compute
Dimple?
in...
Dimple, madam,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
before you take income tax MCQ, should I proceed with GST first or you want to take this first?
Sir, actually, if I because this fourth MCQ and the second descriptive.
Okay.
So if I take this fourth number MCQ, then I will prefer to take the descriptive also along with that because they are just related to each other. So
Please.
as you said,
Please.
if you want to discuss GST MCQ first, then we can proceed like that. Otherwise, I'll just continue with the income tax provision, sir. Whatever you say, sir.
स्टूडेंट्स बोर तो नहीं हो गए कि इनकम टैक्स और लॉ कॉफी हो गया आज?
Let's just ask from the student then.
हाँ जी.
Let's just ask from the student if they want to
Okay.
continue with the income tax or they just want now GST provision, some MCQs related to GST.
Yes, students. Should we continue with income tax only or first we should take GST? Dimple madam is saying
Come
that
on,
ask the students.
We will take both GST and income tax, but because as sir said, already we have taken
Income
taken
tax.
MCQ for income tax and then for law.
Namrata is asking GST or
Prasad, Suraj, so we
Okay,
have a
GST.
majority for GST.
Okay.
Hand it over to you, sir, now.
Okay, thank you, Dimple. Thank you. So first of all, I will be taking question number 8, students. Question number 8 of the case study. Compute the ITC admissible under GST law to IGT Private Limited in respect of various inputs purchased, input services availed during the month of February. So students, the data relating to this is in the last part of the case study. Nisha madam, can you go to the...
Yes, sir. Moving to
Yes.
the last part of the case study, sir.
So if you, IGT Private Limited is in the business of manufacturing of textile products, the accounts team, निशा मैडम थोड़ा सा उसको और वो कर दो, स्लाइड कर
प्रैक्टिस
दो.
करना है सर, बड़ा करना है.
नहीं थोड़ा सा ऊपर कर दीजिए इसको
अच्छा,
चेहरा को.
ओके.
नहीं ये नीचे हो गया. हाँ, आईजीटी ये क्लियरली नजर आ जाए ना मुझे. आईजीटी और ऊपर कर सकते हैं. हाँ, और कर दो
सर.
हाँ
बताओ सर.
हाँ कर दो अभी कर दो.
और
नीचे
कर दो.
टेबल भी अभी यहाँ तक ठीक है.
ठीक है.
IGT Private Limited is in the business of manufacturing of textile products. The accounts team is not much aware about GST laws. Earlier, GST work of the company was being taken care by other company. Now it has come to Kapoor and Company, and CA Piyush Makkada, as I told you earlier, is looking after the GST part. Accountant has correctly taken all other input ITC related to the company, but he was confused with respect to the following ITC. Okay, so inputs purchased and input services availed in the month of February. First item is goods purchased without invoice. ITC कितना 40,000 students. Now if you go to section 16, if you go to section 16 of the GST law, section 16 of the GST law, students, talks about eligibility and conditions for taking ITC. स्टूडेंट्स, आप मैंने जैसा कि बताया था, आप थोड़ा सा नोट करेंगे तो आपको ज्यादा अच्छा समझ में आएगा और ज्यादा क्लैरिटी ऑफ थॉट आपका बढ़ने वाला है. सेक्शन 16 का सब सेक्शन 1, सेक्शन 16 सब सेक्शन 1 एलिजिबिलिटी बताता है कि एवरी रजिस्टर्ड पर्सन subject to condition restrictions as may be prescribed be entitled to take credit of ITC on any supply of goods or services. Means on any supply of goods or services, or both, which are of course used in the course or furtherance of business. Any supply means अगर आप इंटेंट देखें लॉ का, if you see the intent of the law, then ITC is freely allowable. ITC is freely allowable on any supply of goods or services or both. ITC registered person को मिलेगा, that's clear, on any supply of goods or services or both. Means it is freely available, but subject to exceptions. कहाँ है students? Exceptions are there in 17 subsection 5, that is blocked credit. यहां पे गवर्नमेंट ने कहा कि 17(5) में आइटम्स बताए, हमने स्पेसिफाई किए that these credits cannot be, except those credits, students, credit ITC is freely available. So 16(1) में आपको एलिजिबिलिटी बताई गई है. 16(2) नॉन ऑब्स्टेंटे क्लॉज से शुरू होता है स्टूडेंट्स. इट स्टार्ट्स विद नॉन ऑब्स्टेंटे क्लॉज. नॉन ऑब्स्टेंटे क्लॉज क्या होती है स्टूडेंट्स? विच विदाउट एनी ऑब्स्ट्रक्शन, बिना किसी रुकावट के चलती है. 16(2) स्टार्ट्स विद नॉट विद स्टैंडिंग एनीथिंग कंटेन्ड इन दिस सेक्शन. Notwithstanding anything contained in this section, no registered person shall be entitled to the credit of ITC in respect of goods or services or both, unless. अब section 16(2) students, in simple language, it is prescribing the conditions of claiming ITC. और conditions जो बताई हुई हैं वो these are described in section 16 subsection 2, and the first condition is he is in possession of a tax invoice. He is in possession of tax invoice. अब अगर आप ये देखेंगे, फर्स्ट आइटम अगर आप देखेंगे, गुड्स परचेज्ड विदाउट इनवॉइस, और कंडीशन क्या है स्टूडेंट्स? ही इज इन पोजेशन ऑफ ए टैक्स इनवॉइस और डेबिट नोट इशूड, एक ही बात होती है, बाय सप्लायर रजिस्टर्ड अंडर दिस एक्ट और सच अदर टैक्स पेइंग डॉक्यूमेंट एज मे बी प्रिस्क्राइब्ड. आईटीसी, यहां पे जो सप्लायर की बात हो रही है, सप्लायर मींस जिस सप्लायर से मैंने गुड्स खरीदे हैं, मींस आई एम रेसिपिएंट हु इज ट्राइंग टू अवेल द आईटीसी. इस क्वेश्चन में रेसिपिएंट कौन है? आईजीटी प्राइवेट लिमिटेड इज रेसिपिएंट. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड दिस वेरी केयरफुली. आईजीटी प्राइवेट लिमिटेड इज रेसिपिएंट, और हम रेसिपिएंट के एंगल से आईटीसी कितना मिलना चाहिए, हाउ मच आईटीसी इट कैन अवेल, हम स्टडी करेंगे. तो यहां पे कहता है कि सप्लायर ही इज इन पोजेशन. ही मतलब जहां पे लॉ में ही इज इन पोजीशन ऑफ टैक्स इनवॉइस, जो ही है वो आईजीटी प्राइवेट लिमिटेड के लिए यूज किया गया है। तो आईजीटी प्राइवेट लिमिटेड आईटीसी तभी अवेल कर पाएगी स्टूडेंट्स इफ इट इज इन द पोजेशन ऑफ एक टैक्स इनवॉइस, और यहां पे टैक्स इनवॉइस है नहीं, गुड्स परचेज विदाउट इनवॉइस है, तो ये आईटीसी आपको नहीं मिलने वाला, यहां पे क्रॉस लगा दीजिए। तो 40,000 का आईटीसी स्टूडेंट्स क्यों नहीं मिलेगा? क्योंकि आपने 16(2) की ए कंडीशन आपने फुलफिल नहीं की। आई होप ये पॉइंट सबको क्लियर है स्टूडेंट्स। Not allowed. As Namrata is saying, not allowed ITC as recipient should be in possession of invoice as per tax invoice as per section 16. This will amount to an offense. Okay, that's great. तो मेरे ख्याल से सभी स्टूडेंट्स को ये पहला पॉइंट, गुड्स परचेज विदाउट इनवॉइस, ये एवरीबॉडी इज क्लियर विद दिस। ये स्टूडेंट्स मूविंग टू सेकंड पॉइंट, परचेज ऑफ गुड्स not to be used for business purpose, not to be used for business purpose। सेक्शन 16 का जो मैंने पहला सब सेक्शन 1 आपको बताया था अभी, सेक्शन 16 सब सेक्शन 1, 1 minute break I am taking and then we will continue। निशा मैडम,
Yes, sir.
for 1 minute just please address the students and I will come after 1 minute।
Dear students, we would like to take a 1 minute break. So till that time, you can have a glass of water with you and just get and come back after 1 minute. We will be having a 1 minute break. So just get fresh yourself and come up with a fresh mood and mind.
Yes students, sorry for the interruption। Yes, second point is purchase of goods not to be used for business purpose। तो अगर आप एलिजिबिलिटी देखेंगे, if you go to the eligibility section, that is 16 subsection 1, and it is saying every registered person shall, subject to the conditions as may be prescribed, be entitled to take ITC charged on any supply of goods or services or both। मैंने अभी आपको समझाया था, any supply of goods or services or both which are used or intended to be used in the course or furtherance of business, in the course or further। तो ये सेक्शन 16 की सब सेक्शन 1 में ही लिखी हुई है स्टूडेंट्स। तो इसको इट मीन्स इट इज नॉट यूज फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ बिजनेस, इट मीन्स दिस आईटीसी शेल आल्सो बी कैन नॉट बी अवेल्ड। तो यहां पे ये भी अवेल्ड नहीं हो सकता स्टूडेंट्स। तो यहां पे हमने ये भी बात क्लियर कर दी कि ये भी अवेल नहीं हो सकता। तो ये बात आप अगर आप मेरे से पूछेंगे तो सेक्शन 16(1) में लिखी हुई है, प्लस आप इसमें एक और सेक्शन, यू मूव टू दैट ओनली निशा मैडम।
Yes, sir.
सेक्शन 17 सबसेक्शन 5 की क्लॉज जी, इसको आप इसमें आप इसके लिए आप 2 सेक्शंस पढ़ेंगे स्टूडेंट्स, आप स्टडी कर लेना, मैं आपको बता रहा हूं हिंट। गो टू द प्रीवियस पेज निशा मैडम।
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
इसके लिए 20,000 वाली जो आइटम है स्टूडेंट्स, सेक्शन 16 सबसेक्शन 1 इसमें लगेगा, प्लस इसमें साथ में आप स्टडी करेंगे सेक्शन 17 सबसेक्शन 5 की क्लॉज जी भी लग रही है। उसमें हम क्या ब्लॉक क्रेडिट है स्टूडेंट्स, उसमें कि पर्सनल कंजम्पशन के लिए, यहां पे यूज फॉर बिजनेस पर्पज, नॉट टू बी यूज फॉर, इट मीन पर्सनल पर्पज के लिए अगर यूज हुआ है तो ब्लॉक क्रेडिट भी है। सेक्शन 17(5) की जी क्लॉज अगर आप देखेंगे और पेज नंबर 7.64 ऑफ द स्टडी मटेरियल अगर आप जाएंगे तो ये आप पेज नंबर भी नोट कर लीजिए स्टूडेंट्स, जो मैं स्टडी मटेरियल के आपको बता रहा हूं वहां पे ये बात लिखी हुई है। 7.64 पेज नंबर, निशा मैडम आप पेज नंबर भी साथ लिख दीजिए यहां पे, पेज नंबर 7.64 ऑफ द स्टडी मटेरियल, सेक्शन 16, सेक्शन 17 लिखना, सेक्शन 17 सब सेक्शन 5 क्लॉज, इसमें है हमारी जी, जी क्लॉज, करेक्ट करेक्ट। तो और प्लस इसमें आप स्टडी करेंगे सेक्शन 16 सब सेक्शन 1। इन दोनों की कंबाइंड रीडिंग से अगर आप देखेंगे तो ये आईटीसी अवेलेबल नहीं होगा स्टूडेंट्स। इनवर्ट सप्लाईज यूज फॉर पर्सनल कंजम्पशन, सेक्शन 17 सब सेक्शन 5 की क्लॉज जी में अगर जाएंगे तो इनवर्ट सप्लाईज यूज फॉर पर्सनल कंजम्पशन मींस नॉट टू बी यूज फॉर बिजनेस पर्पज, उसमें बोल दिया परचेज ऑफ गुड्स नॉट टू बी यूज फॉर बिजनेस पर्पज मींस पर्सनल कंजम्पशन के लिए यूज हो रहे थे। तो आप इन दोनों सेक्शंस की कंबाइंड रीडिंग करते हैं तो ये अलाउड नहीं होगा, कैन नॉट बी अवेल्ड। यस, यू कैन मूव टू नेक्स्ट निशा मैम।
Yes, sir.
Yes, moving to next item is purchase of goods from Sethi Lal and Sons. Invoice of Sethi Lal and Sons received in the month of February, but goods were received in the month. अब गुड्स तो उस मंथ में मुझे रिसीव हुआ ही नहीं, और आईटीसी को सेक्शन 16 सब सेक्शन 2 इंपॉर्टेंट कंडीशन बताता है कि गुड्स मस्ट हैव बीन रिसीव्ड। He has received. He means IGT Private Limited has received the goods or services or both. तो यहाँ पे गुड्स की बात हो रही है, तो उसने क्या गुड्स रिसीव कर ली है फरवरी में? आंसर यहाँ पे नो आ रहा है। तो स्टूडेंट्स क्योंकि उसने गुड्स रिसीव ही नहीं किए, तो यहाँ पे आप सेक्शन नोट करें, सेक्शन 16 सब सेक्शन 2 की क्लॉज बी, क्लॉज बी। और पेज नंबर आपके स्टडी मटेरियल का 7.10 पे आप ये देख सकते हैं स्टूडेंट्स। तो ये भी आपको ही कैन नॉट अवेल दैट, ये भी अवेल नहीं कर सकते। अभी आंसर भी हम देखेंगे स्टूडेंट्स, अभी आंसर पे मैं जंप नहीं कर रहा हूं, आंसर भी अभी आपको दिखाऊंगा। पॉल्यूशन नेक्स्ट आइटम है स्टूडेंट्स, पॉल्यूशन कंट्रोल इक्विपमेंट यूज्ड इन द फैक्ट्री। अब देखो कितने इंपॉर्टेंट वर्ड है, कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स, कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स। तो कैपिटल गुड्स का आईटीसी भी अलाउड होता है, भी मैंने आपको बताया था कि आईटीसी फ्रीली अवेलेबल होता है, आईटीसी इज फ्रीली अवेलेबल बट सब्जेक्ट टू सेक्शन 17(5) ब्लॉक्ड क्रेडिट। अब पॉल्यूशन कंट्रोल इक्विपमेंट यूज, इसमें एक और कंडीशन जो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट लग जाती है स्टूडेंट्स, ये मेरे को आईटीसी मिल जाएगा 1.5 लाख का, कैपिटल गुड्स का भी मिल जाएगा, लेकिन इसमें एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट आप बात ध्यान रखना, दैट इज सेक्शन 16 सब सेक्शन 3। निशा मैडम आप लिखना है यहाँ पे सेक्शन 16 सब सेक्शन 3, सब्जेक्ट टू सेक्शन 16 सब सेक्शन 3। सेक्शन 16 सब सेक्शन 3 स्टूडेंट्स क्या कहता है, वेयर द रजिस्टर्ड पर्सन हैज क्लेम डेप्रिसिएशन, वेयर द रजिस्टर्ड पर्सन हैज क्लेम्ड डेप्रिसिएशन ऑन द टैक्स कंपोनेंट ऑफ द कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल गुड्स and plant and machinery under the provisions of the Income Tax Act 61, ITC on the said component shall not be allowed। तो इसमें ये कंडीशन है कि अगर उसने इनकम टैक्स में डेप्रिसिएशन ले लिया उस टैक्स कंपोनेंट पर, टैक्स कंपोनेंट की बात हो रही है, देन ITC shall not be allowed। और क्वेश्चन इज नॉट डिस्कसिंग अबाउट एनीथिंग अबाउट दिस, केस स्टडी में कहीं नहीं लिखा, नो वेयर इट इज रिटन कि उसने डेप्रिसिएशन टैक्स कंपोनेंट पार्ट पे ही हैज अवेल्ड और नॉट। सो स्टूडेंट्स ये आईटीसी भी मुझे, बट लेकिन मैं इसका नोट जरूर दूंगा वहां पे। तो सेक्शन 16 और सेक्शन 16 सबसेक्शन 1 प्लस सेक्शन 16 सबसेक्शन 3 की कंबाइंड रीडिंग अगर आप करेंगे तो ये आईटीसी आपको अलाउड हो जाएगा। यस, next point is motor lorries used for transportation of goods, capitalized in books, ये भी capitalized है। और मोटर लॉरीज एज यू ऑल नो इसका स्पेसिफिक प्रोविजन है जीएसटी के अंदर, ब्लॉक्ड क्रेडिट में है। मोटर कार क्रेडिट आईटीसी ऑफ मोटर कार जनरली नहीं मिलेगा, ब्लॉक्ड क्रेडिट में आता है, लेकिन इसकी एक्सेप्शन है, इसकी एक्सेप्शन है जो कि पेज 7.52 पे अगर जाएंगे स्टडी मटेरियल पे, पेज 7.52 स्टूडेंट्स, ये पेज नंबर बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, आप इसको नोट डाउन करके और वहां पे जाके चेक करना जो मैं आपको बात बोल रहा हूं। आईटीसी ऑन मोटर व्हीकल्स other than ineligible motor vehicles. For example, motor vehicle used for transportation of goods for any purpose is allowed used for transportation of goods. Dumpers means if it is used for motor vehicle is used for transportation of goods, then ITC would be allowed. तो ये आप 7.52 पे ये बात क्लियरली मेंशन्ड है स्टूडेंट्स, इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं। तो आपको पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल इक्विपमेंट टू 1,50,000 अलाउड होगा, इस पे टिक मार्क कर देना निशा मैडम। 1,50,000 पे बॉक्स के अंदर ही, हाँ ग्रेट। मोटर लॉरीज का भी आपको मिल जाएगा 2,50,000 स्टूडेंट्स। इलेक्ट्रिकल ट्रांसफॉर्मर्स यूज्ड इन द फैक्ट्री कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स, ये भी कैपिटलाइज्ड हो गया स्टूडेंट्स, तो इसका भी आईटीसी मिल जाएगा, प्रोवाइडेड कि मैंने 16(3) की कंडीशन पूरी कर ली हो, कि मैंने डेप्रिसिएशन टैक्स कंपोनेंट डेप्रिसिएशन उस पर डेप्रिसिएशन ना लिया हो। डबल बेनिफिट आई कैन नॉट टेक। कैपिटल गुड्स टू बी, नेक्स्ट आइटम आई एम कमिंग मूविंग टू, कैपिटल गुड्स टू बी यूज्ड एज पार्ट्स परचेज्ड फ्रॉम supplier paying tax under the composition scheme, and such composite tax has not been collected from IGT Private Limited by the supplier. Very important thing. तो स्टूडेंट्स अब कंपोजिशन स्कीम आप सब, मैं वो कंपोजिशन स्कीम अभी नहीं समझा रहा हूं आपको। कंपोजिशन स्कीम में अगर मुझे कोई इनवॉइस मिली है तो क्या मुझे आईटीसी मिल जाएगी? क्वेश्चन स्टूडेंट्स, अब ये ब्लॉक क्रेडिट के अंदर आता है, स्पेसिफिकली ब्लॉक क्रेडिट में मेंशन है। कोई स्टूडेंट्स क्या आप मुझे बता सकते हैं कि कौन सी क्लॉज इसमें 17(5) की कौन सी क्लॉज में ये बात लिखी हुई है? ये स्टूडेंट्स क्या आप मुझे बता सकते हैं? 17(5) की ब्लॉक क्रेडिट 17(5) सबको मालूम है, सभी स्टूडेंट्स को मालूम है, लेकिन ये कौन सी क्लॉज में ये बात लिखी गई है, क्या मुझे बता सकते हैं? आई एम वेटिंग फॉर योर आंसर। ये स्टूडेंट्स, कौन सी क्लॉज में ये बात लिखी हुई है स्टूडेंट्स? यू आर नॉट कमिंग आउट स्टूडेंट्स, नो स्टूडेंट इज आंसरिंग आई थिंक। चलो मैं बता देता हूं स्टूडेंट्स, दिस इज एज पर क्लॉज ई ऑफ सेक्शन 17(5), inward supplies charged to tax under composition levy. This is again a block, ये ब्लॉक क्रेडिट है एज पर सेक्शन 5 क्लॉज ई। तो निशा मैडम यहां पे सेक्शन 17 सब सेक्शन 5 और क्लॉज ई लिख देना। यस, सो ये पेज नंबर 7.63 ऑफ स्टडी मटेरियल में अगर आप जाएंगे वहां पर ये बात आपको, ये आप जरूर एक्सरसाइज करिएगा जो मैं आपको बोल रहा हूं, ये आप वहां पेज नंबर जाके वहां पे रेलेवेंट पैरा, रेलेवेंट क्लॉज आप अच्छी तरह से स्टडी करना, और मैं आपको पढ़ के नहीं सुना रहा हूं, बट यू नीड टू टेक दिस फॉरवर्ड, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। सो ये ब्लॉक क्रेडिट है तो ये आपको अवेलेबल, इस पे क्रॉस लगा देना निशा मैडम। माउल्ट्स एंड डाइज यूज्ड इन द, ये कैपिटल गुड्स हैं, ये एजम्पशन है, एज्यूम किया कि कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स। निशा मैडम इसके आगे लिख देना कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स, ये एजम्पशन है, हमने एजम्पशन लिए स्टूडेंट्स, ये कैपिटल गुड्स की तरह ट्रीट होते हैं, कैपिटलाइज्ड इन बुक्स, तभी ये कैपिटल गुड्स हो जाएंगे। और इसका 65,000 फिर क्या होगा, लाइक पॉल्यूशन कंट्रोल और इलेक्ट्रिकल ट्रांसफॉर्मर्स, ये अलाउड होगा, ये स्टिक मार्क कर देना निशा मैडम। Next important item is the company buys cement, tiles and avail the services of an architect for the construction of its building. सभी स्टूडेंट्स ने आईटीसी अच्छी तरह से स्टडी सर ने पढ़ा भी दिया आपको, जीएसटी वाले सर ने। क्या मुझे इस क्वेश्चन का आंसर दे सकते हैं? आई एम वेटिंग फॉर कि ये अलाउड होगा या नहीं होगा। यस स्टूडेंट्स, वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन, लास्ट वेरी गुड आइटम। शंकरा आपने करेक्ट आंसर दिया 17.5 ई क्लॉज। शंकरा आपने जो क्वेश्चन पूछा है आपकी फेब्रवरी में इनवॉइस और अगर गुड्स मार्च में रिसीव हो तो ऑब्वियसली मिल जाना चाहिए उसमें, उस केस में, क्योंकि कंडीशन जब पूरी होगी तो 16.2 की कंडीशन जब आप पूरी करोगे तो आपको मिल जाएगा। यस, कंपनी बायस सीमेंट टाइल्स एंड अवेल द सर्विसेज of an architect for the construction of its office building. Very important thing. जो yes, can any student tell? Yes, students, ये नोट कर लीजिए आप. Very important thing is 17.5, 17 subsection 5. निशा मैडम प्लीज राइट 17 subsection 5 क्लॉज डी अगर आप स्टडी करेंगे तो ये उसके अंदर ब्लॉक क्रेडिट में आ रहा है। 17.5D, page number 7.62 of the study material, clause D of section 17, subsection 5. Self-construction of immovable property. This is under self-construction of immovable property. इसके अंदर एग्जाम्पल 36 लिखा हुआ है आपके, एग्जाम्पल 36 लिखना निशा मैडम। एग्जाम्पल 36 अगर आप देखेंगे वहां पे लिखा है कंपनी बाय सीमेंट टाइल्स एंड अवेल्स द सर्विसेज ऑफ एन आर्किटेक्ट फॉर कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ इट्स ऑफिस बिल्डिंग, आईटीसी ऑन सच गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज इज ब्लॉक्ड। आईटीसी ऑन सच गुड्स एंड, आपके एग्जाम्पल 36 में अगर आप वहां पे जाके देखोगे लिखा है इट इज ब्लॉक्ड, बिल्कुल सेम एग्जाम्पल दिया हुआ है स्टूडेंट्स। तो आप देख रहे हैं कैसे कितनी बारीकी से क्वेश्चन पूछे जा रहे हैं। तो ये आपको ब्लॉक होगा, नहीं मिलेगा, यू कैन नॉट अवेल दिस। इस पे क्रॉस लगा देना निशा मैडम। नाउ इफ यू गो टू द आंसर, निशा मैडम आंसर पे आप जाना एक बार।
Yes, sir.
इफ यू गो एंड सी द आंसर, अब आप देखो ये सारी बात जो मैंने आपको समझाई है स्टूडेंट्स, वट एवर आई हैव कन्वे टू यू, it is solved like this. Yes, next answer 8. Yes, computation of ITC admissible to IGT in respect of various inputs purchased during the month of February. Goods purchased without, क्योंकि इनवॉइस ही नहीं थी, मैंने आपको एक्सप्लेन किया, कंडीशन ही पूरी नहीं हुई। परचेज ऑफ गुड्स नॉट टू बी यूज्ड फॉर बिजनेस पर्पस, बेसिक कंडीशन ही 16.1 की पूरी नहीं हुई, तो नील यहां पे हो गया। परचेज ऑफ गुड्स फ्रॉम सेठी लाल एंड सन्स, मैंने आपको वहां पे क्रॉस लगवाया था, ये सारे क्रॉस मैंने लगवाए थे जो यहाँ पे नील लिखा है। बट गुड्स वर रिसीव्ड, बिकॉज गुड्स ही रिसीव नहीं हुए तो उस मंथ में आपको नहीं मिला। पॉल्यूशन कंट्रोल इक्विपमेंट कैपिटलाइज्ड इन द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स, ये टिक आपने देखोगे वहां पे टिक लगा हुआ है, तो आप अगर वहां पे देखोगे तो निशा मैडम एक बार दिखा दो एक बार टिक भी स्टूडेंट्स को।
हाँ सर।
1,50,000 पे देखो आप टिक लगा हुआ है। 1,50,000 पे टिक लगा हुआ देखो आप। 250 पे टिक है, अब ये याद रखना आप 225 पे और 65 पे, तीन 250, 225 और 65, ये तीन बातें आपको याद रखनी है। अभी मैं आपको दिखा देता हूं। ये देखो 250, 225, 65, बाकी नील है स्टूडेंट्स, यही हमने स्टडी किया है अभी। और नीचे इसकी एक्सप्लेनेशन जैसा कि मैंने आपको समझाया है वो सारी लिखी हुई है। तो स्टूडेंट्स दिस इज हाउ द क्वेश्चंस आपको, अगर आपने अच्छी तरह से थॉरो, इफ यू हैव थॉरोली अंडरस्टूड व्हाट इज रिटन इन देयर द what is there written there in the study material, thoroughly you have understood that, if you have the conceptual clarity of the ITC provision और प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई प्रोविजन, लास्ट स्टडी केस स्टडी में हमने किया था, जब टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई पे केस स्टडी हो सकती है, वैल्यूएशन पे हो सकती है केस स्टडी स्टूडेंट्स, तो आप कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी रखिए। एंड यू सी एग्जाम के अंदर क्या आ रहा है, इन एग्जामिनेशन यू आर फेसिंग total application of the concepts, application of the provisions you are facing. So this is how students you need to handle the case study. And students please remember conceptual clarity का कोई substitute नहीं है। Yes, moving to the MCQ which is related to the GST. MCQ number, this is
2.
2. MCQ 2 स्टूडेंट्स, उसमें क्या ब्लॉक क्रेडिट से रिलेटेड है, क्रेडिट ऑफ टैक्स पेड ऑन ऑलमोस्ट एवरी आइटम इनपुट एंड इनपुट सर्विस for supply of taxable goods is allowed under GST except a list of items provided, that is 17(5). except list of items कहां दी हुई है, सेक्शन 17(5) में दी हुई है। और 16(1) कहता है कि क्रेडिट ऑफ ऑलमोस्ट एवरी आइटम इज अलाउड, इनपुट एंड इनपुट सर्विसेज ITC जो है अलाउड है, फ्रीली अवेलेबल है। Thus ITC on such items is not allowed even though the same may qualify as input, चाहे वो इनपुट क्वालिफाई हो रहे हैं, चाहे इनपुट सर्विसेज भी, कैपिटल गुड्स भी क्वालिफाई हो रहे हैं, लेकिन फिर भी नहीं मिलता। तो उनके बेसिस पे स्टूडेंट्स आप ये क्वेश्चन आंसर करें कि विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग ITC इज एडमिसिबल अंडर GST। अब इसमें आपको बताना एडमिसिबल किसका होगा, पहला। अब अगर स्टूडेंट्स आप एक बेसिक बात अगर ध्यान में रखोगे कि अगर आप GST गवर्नमेंट को कमा के दोगे, इफ यू अर्न द GST, ठीक है, तो आप ITC क्लेम कर सकते हैं। अगर इफ यू आर नॉट अर्निंग द GST ऑन आउटवर्ड सप्लाई, तो आप ITC क्लेम नहीं करें। ये मोटा सा एक फॉर्मूला है। सो गुड्स लॉस्ट, स्टोलन, डिस्ट्रॉयड, रिटर्न ऑफ, ये तो इसमें तो ITC क्लेम क्रॉस कर दो निशा मैडम, इसे इसमें तो आपको ITC मिलने वाला नहीं है, ये ब्लॉक्ड है। और ये ब्लॉक क्लॉज H ऑफ सेक्शन 17(5) के अंदर ब्लॉक्ड है स्टूडेंट। अगर आप क्लॉज H देखेंगे, निशा मैडम ये लिख देना, सेक्शन 17(5) के अंदर ब्लॉक है। और पेज 7.64 पे ये पॉइंट डिस्कस है। स्टूडेंट्स आप जरूर देखना, ये जो मैं यहाँ पे पेज नंबर भी लिख रहा हूं आपके रेफरेंस के लिए, और सेक्शन नंबर भी लिख रहा हूं कि कहां पे ब्लॉक है। अभी मैं बी पॉइंट के, सर्विस ऑफ जनरल इंश्योरेंस ऑफ मोटर व्हीकल्स फॉर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ पर्संस हैविंग अप्रूव्ड सीटिंग कैपेसिटी ऑफ 7 पर्संस। मोटर कार का स्टूडेंट्स 13 और लेस देन 13%, 13 और लेस देन 13% ITC ब्लॉक होता है। अब नेचुरली हम उसी मोटर कार के इंश्योरेंस की बात कर रहे हैं, उसी मोटर कार के, वी आर टॉकिंग ऑफ द इंश्योरेंस ऑफ द सेम मोटर कार। अब यहां पे 7 पर्सन्स हैं, सीटिंग कैपेसिटी ऑफ 7 पर्सन्स, तो 13 और लेस देन 13% ITC ब्लॉक होता है। अब यहां पे 7% है, मींस इस मोटर कार का ITC ब्लॉक होगा। और इसी से रिलेटेड अगर मैं इंश्योरेंस पे कर रहा हूं तो वो भी ब्लॉक होगा। ये भी क्रॉस कर दें निशा मैडम। ये क्लियरली आपके मटेरियल में बात, अगर आप मोटर कार के प्रोविजन देखोगे उसमें क्लियरली लिखा हुआ है, सेक्शन 17(5) क्लॉज ए, और आप 7.51 पेज पे आप देख सकते हैं, क्लियरली लिखी हुई है। कन्फेक्शनरी आइटम्स, सी पॉइंट देखो क्या है, फॉर कंजम्पशन प्रोवाइडेड टू एम्प्लॉइज वर्किंग इन द फैक्ट्री अंडर स्टैट्यूटरी ऑब्लिगेशन, फूड एंड बेवरेजेस। तो ये फूड एंड बेवरेजेस की बात हो रही है स्टूडेंट्स। यहाँ पे कन्फेक्शनरी आइटम्स को हम फूड एंड बेवरेजेस भी कह देते हैं, तो यहाँ पे आपने कंफ्यूज नहीं होना। फूड एंड बेवरेजेस प्रोवाइडेड टू एम्प्लॉइज वर्किंग इन द फैक्ट्री अंडर स्टैट्यूटरी, अगर स्टैट्यूटरी ऑब्लिगेशन हो जाती है तो आप जीएसटी अवेल कर सकते हैं। ये बात आपको सबको क्लियर है कि अगर अंडर स्टैट्यूटरी ऑब्लिगेशन कोई काम करना पड़ रहा है तो दैट इज उसका आपको आईटीसी अवेलेबल होता है। आंसर इज यस। एंड फूड एंड बेवरेजेस प्रोक्योर्ड फ्रॉम मोहन केटरर फॉर बीइंग यूज्ड इन डीलर्स मीट, तो ये तो इसका तो आईटीसी आपको मिलने वाला नहीं है। और ये एग्जाम्पल नंबर अगर आप देखेंगे इसका डी पॉइंट का, क्लियरली आपके स्टडी मटेरियल में सारी बातें लिखी हुई हैं। डी पॉइंट की अगर मैं बात करूं तो डी पॉइंट का एग्जांपल नंबर 26 है, पेज नंबर 7.58। एग्जांपल 26 एंड पेज नंबर 7.58 है निशा मैडम।
जी सर, क्या सर?
7.58.
7.58. ओके
58। ये 7.8 लिखा है ना आपने, 58 लिख दीजिए इसको प्लीज। यस, नाउ इट इज कमिंग राइट। 7.58। स्टूडेंट्स इस पे अगर आप जाके देखेंगे, ITC on outdoor catering services availed by garment exporter for a marketing event organized for its perspective is blocked. तो food and beverages procured from Mohan caterers for being used in dealers meet हो यहाँ पे, या कोई मार्केटिंग इवेंट हो आपका, तो उसका आईटीसी आपकी क्या होगी? ब्लॉक होगी। तो इस तरह से स्टूडेंट्स आप एग्जांपल्स बहुत अच्छे अच्छे दिए हुए, तो आप एक बार सारे एग्जांपल्स, ये तो मैंने आपको इससे रिलेटेड बताए हैं जो एग्जांपल आपके कवर हो रहे हैं। अदरवाइज स्टूडेंट्स लेफ्ट राइट आप एक बार स्टडी करिएगा जरूर। टाइम की ऑफ कोर्स पॉसिबिलिटी, अभी निशा मैडम ने भी आपको पढ़ाना है थोड़ा सा, और डिम्पल मैडम भी क्वेश्चन कराएंगे। तो होपफुली मैंने कोशिश करी है आपको एक बार आईटीसी के, और ये आप पूरा एक बार अच्छी तरीके से करिएगा। हाँ, स्टूडेंट्स ने लिखा है, नम्रता ने, आईटीसी अलाउड एज देयर इज स्टैट्यूटरी। वेरी गुड, यू आर क्लियर विद द, बिकॉज सर ने, मैंने देखा है आपको बहुत अच्छे से पढ़ाया है आईटीसी। यस यस, निशा यू विल लाइक टू टेक
यस सर।
लॉ पार्ट और डिम्पल इज,
सर डिम्पल इज टेकिंग सर।
Sir, I will take now
ओके
direct tax, sir.
यू कैन कंटिन्यू डिम्पल।
So now moving forward to direct tax MCQs and descriptive, we are at MCQ number 4. Okay, what is the requirement of the MCQ? The MCQ requires to compute interest on machinery that is allowed as deduction under Income Tax Act to Agrasen Spinners Private Limited. So they are talking about the machinery which the company has purchased, and what about the interest which the company is paying on the loan amount which it has borrowed. So we have to go to the facts of the case study, which was there in page number 1, the last paragraph. What was the, now we have to again see the facts. What was the facts? That there is a company, Agrasen Spinner Private Limited. It was in the business of trading of yarns. Now the company wants to go forward in the area of manufacturing as well. Last year, company had made capital investment in construction of building. This year, company has purchased one machinery on 1st April 2023 for 10 crores. The company has purchased the machinery for 10 crores. Company had paid from their own fund 30%. It means they have the 30% they have used their own money. It means 3 crore they have spent it from their own pocket. And for the balance 70%, which is 7 crore, they have taken a loan from a bank at the rate 12% per annum. So regarding this interest, the interest which the company is paying at the rate 12% on this 7 crore, the MCQ is asking how much deduction would be available for that. So now we have to just understand what is the relevant provision in this context. So student, if you see there section 36. The company is engaged in manufacturing business. So obviously the income would be computed under the head PGBP, profit and gains from business or profession. Under this, there is a section 36, which allows deduction for certain expenditures. So what are the expenditures? Relating to your interest, bonus, commission, insurance, and all these things. Under this 36, there is a section 36, subsection 1, clause 3, which says that interest which you have paid on borrowed capital, borrowed for the purpose of business or profession. Borrowed for किसके लिए? For your business purpose. That would be allowed as deduction from while computing PGBP income. So this capital borrowed can be for any purpose relating to your business. It can be for your liability to pay to some creditors or to purchase this machinery in this case. So whatever the interest you are paying in this on this capital, it will be allowed as deduction. This section 37(1)(3) says, but there is a proviso. There is a proviso to section 36(1)(3), which says that if you are taking a loan or you have borrowed the capital for the purpose of acquisition of a new asset, acquisition of asset, then the interest which you are paying on this loan from the date, कब से कब तक? From the date of from the date on which capital was borrowed till the date when till the date you have put to use that asset. Put to use that asset. This asset के लिए you have taken the loan. Till the date we have put to use the asset. The interest portion, the interest payment which we have made would not be allowed as deduction. Would not be allowed as deduction. Under section 36. So it means what it says. Firstly, it says कि whatever the interest you are paying on the loan which you have borrowed for business purpose, that will be allowed as deduction. It means you can claim the deduction. But there is a proviso, there is a exception that if you have paid interest for loan which you have borrowed for acquisition of an asset, then from the date on which you have borrowed that capital till the date that asset is put to use, you will not be allowed as deduction. It means इस डेट पे, सपोज दिस इज योर ग्राफ, इस डेट पे यू आर बोरिंग द कैपिटल, इस डेट पे यू आर पुट टू यूजिंग योर एसेट एंड दिस इज योर एंड ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल ईयर. सो दिस टेन्योर फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ बोरोइंग till the date of put to use. 36 में you will not get the deduction for this interest. It means for this period, after put to use to the end of the previous year, the interest deduction would be allowed. So it means if you go to the facts of the case study, when it was borrowed on, when your company has purchased the asset, it was purchased on 1st April 2023. Okay. And when the asset is put to use, the company was required for extension of business and was put to use into effective production on 1st February 2024. यानी कि 1st February 2024. यानी कि interest which you have paid for this period would not be allowed as deduction under section 36. So it means which deduction would be allowed under section 36? Yeah, it means from 1st Feb 2024 से 31st March, because our previous year ends on 31st March 2024 in this case, is for this 2 months period, the deduction would be allowed. So what would be the deduction? You have a loan of 7 crore. Interest rate is 12% per annum, and the deduction would be allowed for these 2 months only after the put to use date. So the deduction would be your 14 lakhs, which will be allowed under section 36(1)(3). So this is the answer to your respective MCQs. 70 lakh interest deduction? No. 84? No. 0, it means you will not allow any deduction for interest? No. 14 lakh would be allowed. But according to the MCQ, the answer ends here. But there is one more section which is regarding 43B, which tells about the actual payment basis, that deduction would be allowed. 36 says you will get the deduction for this expenditure, but 43B says the deduction would be allowed for certain expenditure on actual payment basis only, or extended time period which you have for this deduction is up to the date of return filing, due date for return filing. Date of return filing. And in one of the clause is regarding interest. If you have to pay interest to any scheduled bank, you have taken a loan from scheduled bank, for cooperative bank, notified NBFC, then your state financial corporation, etc. Then in that case, the interest deduction would be allowed, because 36 allowed that interest deduction for business purpose, but this deduction would be allowed in the previous year in which you have made the actual payment. So यानी कि suppose interest relates to, in this case, 2023-24. This is the extended part which I am telling. This is not the requirement of the MCQ. This is the extended part. Interest relates to previous year 23-24, and you have taken a loan from a bank. So in that case, interest would be allowed for these 2 months. The 2 months which you are talking about in this case study, for February and March, interest would be allowed if the company has paid the interest up to when? Up to the due date. Up to due date of ROI. Then only this 14 lakh interest would be allowed. Otherwise, it will not be allowed in this previous year. Suppose company has paid interest on 30th November 2024 to the bank for this previous year. What would be in that case? What would be the answer to your MCQ 4 in this case? Suppose it's extended version. Suppose company has paid the interest, had paid interest to bank on 30th November 2024. Then what would be the correct answer, students? In that case, for the second part, what would be the correct answer amongst these 4 answers? Tell me quickly. If the company has paid interest to bank on 30th November, matlab company has not paid the interest during the previous year 2023-24, they are paying the interest on 30th November 2024. Then what would be the answer of this MCQs? Would the answer still be 14 lakh, or there will be any change? Namrata, Mansha, Prasad? Waiting students, tell me what would be your answer. I hope my question is very clear to you. If in this case company pays the interest to the bank on 30th November 2024, then what would be your amount of deduction which would be allowed while computing your income under the head PGBP? Yes, Namrata. 0. Suraj Kulkarni. Yes, C. 0. Not allowed as not paid till due date. Yeah, in this case, your answer would be C. If the company has not paid the interest up to the due date of filing return of income, then there will be no deduction allowed in the previous year 2023-24, but the deduction would be allowed in the year in which actual payment is made. It means interest would be allowed in previous year 2024-25, not in 2023-24. In the year in which liability was incurred. So this is the extended part. Yeah, Namrata, not allowed as not paid till the due date of filing. Yes, correct. Now, I'll just go to the descriptive question 7, because that is related to the extended part of this MCQs. Advise Agresen Spinners Private Limited on treatment of interest payment on loan and depreciation allowable. Regarding the interest payment, for some portion of interest, for the 2 months interest payment, we have already computed in the fourth MCQ. So this is the extended version of that MCQs. And regarding the depreciation, which would be allowed to Agresen for assessment year 24-25. Assume that this machine is the only machine in the relevant block of asset, and the company is not opting for concessional rate under section 115 BA. So 36 में what we have already seen is from the date on which loan was borrowed up to the date till the asset was put to use, that would not be allowed as deduction under section 36. Now for depreciation, what is the relevant section first? Depreciation the relevant section is 32 as well as 43. What 43 says about actual cost of asset? Because on which amount you will compute the depreciation? On the actual cost only. So actual cost के लिए you have to go to section 43. 43 says what is your actual cost of the asset? Actual cost will be the actual cost to the assessee. It means the cost which the assessee has incurred is the actual cost of the asset. There is an explanation in the explanation 8 to section 43. What it says? It says something related to this, your interest only. What it says कि in regarding to interest, if you have borrowed some capital, borrowed some loan for the purpose of acquisition of asset, because we are talking about section 43, which relates to the actual cost of an asset. So 43 says regarding the interest part which you are paying for the acquisition of that asset. It's a clarificatory explanation. The explanation says if you have borrowed the capital and you have put to use the asset, then the date from which you have put to use the asset till the end of the financial year, you can say, this period interest, you can't add it to the actual cost of the asset. You can't add it. It means what? Again, the timeline. You are borrowing the loan on this date, put to use on this date, and this is the end of the financial year, 31st March. So 36 says this period. For 43 says कि this period interest, you can't add it to the cost. Can't add to the cost. ठीक है? And what 36 says? 36 says this period interest would not be allowed as, not allowed as deduction. Both Both are related. It means this period interest you will include in your actual cost. And this period interest will be allowed under section 36. So these two sections are interrelated. 36 not says about ki this period interest is allowed. This period interest is allowed. It is saying this period interest would not be allowed. Similarly, 43 is not saying what is you can include in the actual cost. It is saying you can't include this in the actual cost. So they are just clarifying both other sections. So if a 43 I see the capital actual cost, what was the actual cost of the machinery? That was 10 crore. So interest which you can capitalize is from the date, yani ki 1st April 2023 till the day from up to 1st February 2024. It means your 31st January. This year interest you will have to capitalize. That will be included in your cost of the machinery. How much interest is that? 7 crore loan into 12% per annum into 10 by 12, which comes to 70 lakh. It means 70 lakh interest would be added to your actual cost. So your actual cost would be 10 crore 70 lakh now. So for the purpose of claiming depreciation, you will claim depreciation on this amount. Regarding the 2 months, 1st February to 24 to 31st March 24, interest, it is already claimed under section 36. And for before that depreciation, it will be added to your actual cost. So what is the requirement of question? The half requirement of the question is treatment of interest payment. So there are two parts. First is regarding before put to use, which we have already dealt with in the MCQ. That will be 14 lakh as deduction under section 36 and 70 lakh that would be part of your actual cost. That would be included in your actual cost. So this is the answer up till for this part only. What is the remaining requirement? Depreciation. How much depreciation you can claim on this asset, this machinery? Consider this is the only machinery. So what is the actual cost? 10 crore 70 lakh. Depreciation, what is the section? Section 32. 32 says on the actual cost of the asset, there is a prescribed rate for depreciation which will be allowed. For machinery, what is the prescribed rate? That is 15%. But wait, in this case, when the asset was purchased on 1st April 2023. But for depreciation, what is the relevant date? Relevant date is not the date of your purchasing of asset. The relevant date is when you have put to use, that asset. And the date is 1st February 2024. So, yani ki relevant date, the relevant date would be 1st February 2024. So, you will be allowed depreciation since you have put to use the asset on 1st February 2024. If you have put to use on 1st May 2023, then simple 115% depreciation you can claim on the actual cost. But because you have not put to use the asset for 180 days or more, you have put to use for less than 180 days, depreciation would be allowed 50% of the prescribed rate. What was the prescribed rate? 15%, and depreciation would be allowed only 50%. It means you will be allowed depreciation of only 7.5% of this 10 crore 70 lakh in the previous year 2023-24. Suppose in this case, so what would be depreciation? You have to calculate 10 crore 70 lakh into 7.5%. This is the normal depreciation. Suppose in this case, I am just changing the figure. Suppose you have not put to use the asset in this year, in previous year 2023-24. So would the assessee be eligible for any depreciation? Yes or no? Suppose the company has put to use the asset on 1st May 2024. In the next year, they have put to use the asset. Would the company be eligible for any depreciation during the previous year 23-24? Tell me, students. What would be your answer? Yes, Suraj. Because company has not put to use the asset, it is not eligible for depreciation in previous year 2023-24. It doesn't matter in the Income Tax Act whether you have put to use the asset for single day or for whole of the year. It matters that whether you have put to use the asset or not. If you have put to use the asset on 31st March, then also you will eligible for depreciation for that year. Yeah, but 50% depreciation would be available because you have not put to use for 180 days or more. You have put to use for less than 180 days. So 50% depreciation would be allowed. Otherwise, number of days doesn't matter in the Income Tax Act. Only condition is put to use for less than 180 days or 180 days or more. That is the only thing which we have to see.
और स्टूडेंट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट कि पुट टू यूज का जो मैडम ने बताया, डिम्पल मैडम ने, दैट्स वेरी एक्सलेंट पॉइंट, एक्सलेंट एक्सप्लेनेशन. स्टूडेंट्स, वन थिंग मोर, you all should note that practically when the asset is put to use, then you need to take pictures of the asset and you need to prepare relevant documentation that when the asset is put to use. So relevant pictures are helpful because the department rejects the claim of the assessee. Sometimes the date when the asset is put to use. So you should take note of this, that relevant documentation has been prepared for the purpose when the asset is put to use. So that is very, very important point, because in so many cases, I have seen that assessee is not able to give proper evidence as to when the asset is put to use. So this is very important point in addition to this. Yes, Dimple, you can continue.
Yes, sir. Then further extension, the one more thing which I just want you students to answer. Suppose first thing is the actual which is given in the facts that a company has put to use on 1st February. We have already dealt with that situation. If the company has put to use on 1st May 2024, then also everybody is right that there will be no depreciation for 2023-24. Suppose if the company has put to use the asset on 1st December 2024, then for previous year 23-24, there will be no depreciation. But what about previous year 24-25? Since company is the asset is put to use for less than 180 days in that year, 15% depreciation would be allowed, or 50% of 15%, since the company has put to use for less than 180 days. What would be the correct answer for previous year 24-25 in this case, if the asset is put to use on 1st December 2000?
Very good question, students. Very good question, मैडम जो पूछ रही हैं आपसे. तो प्लीज आंसर दिस क्वेश्चन. वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन.
Among students for previous year 2023-24, because asset was not put to use in that year, so there will be no depreciation for that year. But in the subsequent year, 1st December 2024, the asset was put to use. Since it was put to use for less than 180 days.
Geeta is answering.
Geeta says for previous year 24-25, full year depreciation will be taken. Manisha is saying 7.5%. Suraj 7.5%.
Mixed opinion is coming, Dimple.
Yes, sir. That is why I am waiting for.
Great.
Kirti, Namrata. Before just explaining this, I just want what the student has understand so far. Kirti 15%. Okay, students. So in this case, the correct answer would be 15%, not 50% of 15%.
Very good. This is very good explanation.
Because this condition of put to use less than 180 days wali condition, that would be relevant only in the year of acquisition.
This condition is, students, relevant only in the year of acquisition. Very good explanation. So students, please take note of this. This is very very important point. और आप देखो कितनी बारीकी से, कितनी माइन्यूटली मैडम ने आपको समझाया है. ये पॉइंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है फ्रॉम एग्जामिनेशन पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. In DT paper, this question is being asked in so much of the question papers I have seen this, that examiner is asking this question.
So in the subsequent year, if in the year of acquisition the asset is not put to use and it is put to use in the subsequent year, then you don't need to see for 180 days condition. The full year depreciation would be allowed in the subsequent year. So the correct answer would be 15%, not 50% of 15%. I hope this is clear to everybody. Suraj, Manisha, Prasad. I am just mentioning this by your name because you have wrote 7.5%. That's why I just want to just bring this topic in between. Ki only in the year of acquisition of asset, this condition is relevant 180 days wali. In the subsequent year, if you are putting up the asset, then this condition has no relevance. You have to, the assessee will claim, can claim depreciation of full of the prescribed percentage.
That point is well taken, Dimple. You can move ahead.
Thank you, sir. So regarding the depreciation part,
you can show the answer directly.
Yes, sir. I'm just going to the answer which is given in the case study. As per the proviso to section 36(1)(3), interest paid in respect of capital borrowed for acquisition of asset, कब से कब तक, beginning from the date of borrowing till the asset is put to use, is not allowed as deduction. Why it's not allowed? Because it would be added to your actual cost as per section 40T. ठीक है? So interest for the remaining 2 months, यानी कि after put to use, that would be allowed under section 36(1)(3). Interest for such period, which is from the date of borrowing of asset till the date of put to use, that would be capitalized. So it means for 10 months, 7 crore ka 10 months for 12%, that would be capitalized. So what is the amount? 10 crore 70 lakh, which we have already derived.
Right. You can go to depreciation part of it.
And interest for remaining 2 months, that would be allowed as deduction. This is already in MCQ number 4. Regarding the depreciation, I have just completed the part of the depreciation. Since the machinery is put to use for less than 180 days in the previous year 23-24, depreciation would be restricted to 50% of 15%. So your depreciation would be 10 crore 70 lakh into 15% ka 50%. This is the thing. Now there is one more concept of additional depreciation. So there is one concept of additional depreciation. Additional depreciation you will get if the assessee is engaged in the business of manufacturing or generation of electricity. Then additional depreciation would be allowed. Okay? And there is the other condition also that asset should be purchased for the manufacturing business only. It should not be a second-hand machinery. It should, assessee had not used the machinery earlier. All these conditions. So it means in a nutshell, additional depreciation is for new plant and machinery. It's not for all asset. It is not for building. It is not for vehicle. Vehicle is a plant and machinery if you are using it in the factory. So the asset should be plant and machinery. Furniture, fixture or building, they are not eligible for additional depreciation. So in case of new plant and machinery, additional depreciation would be allowed. What would be the rate of additional depreciation? It is 20%. Again, in this 20 for additional depreciation, you have to see the criteria of this 180 days. If the asset is put to use for less than 180 days, then 50% of this, 50% of 20% would be allowed in that year. So in this case, in the question, the asset was put to use on 1st February. It means it is put to use for less than 180 days. It means additional depreciation would be available for 10%, 50% or 20%, 10% only on the actual cost. Actual cost of the asset. So 10 crore to 10 crore 70 lakh into 10% would be allowed as additional depreciation under section 32(1)(2). And what about the remaining 10%? That would be lapse? No. Regarding the remaining 10%, because you have put to use for less than 180 days, that doesn't mean that you are eligible for 10% only. The remaining 10% would be allowed in subsequent previous year, that is previous year 2024-25. Remaining 10% assessee can claim in the subsequent previous year. But mind it, the 10% is of actual cost. It is not on the WDV. Next year, maybe student, you have made a mistake on this. Next year, this 10 crore 70 lakh ka only 10% would be allowed in this year, and isi ka 10% would be allowed in the subsequent year, not on the WDV. On this actual cost only, it will be allowed. So in the current situation, 50% of 20%, that is 10%, would be allowed on 10 crore 70 lakhs. It is 1 crore 7 lakh. Additional depreciation, because the company is engaged in manufacturing of cotton and purchase new machinery, it would be allowed for additional depreciation. It would be restricted to 50%. Balance depreciation, additional depreciation of the same amount of the, it means 10% of this amount shall be allowed under section 32(1)(2)(a) in the immediately succeeding previous year. So this is your descriptive. In this case, the company, on the question already it is mentioned the company is not opting for 115 BAA. 115 BAA is your concessional tax regime, which is available to any domestic company. But for claiming this concessional regime, company has to forgo certain exemption and deduction. For that, one of that is additional depreciation. The additional depreciation. If the company is opting for this concessional tax regime under section 115A, what would be your answer? Suppose the question says company is opting for, then what would be your answer in that case? Your answer will be the same, but only the company would not be eligible for this additional depreciation in that case. Got it, student? You have to clearly see in the case study, in the facts, whether the company is opting for concessional tax regime or not. Because additional, if company is opting for concessional tax regime, then there are certain exemption deduction company has to forgo, like 10 AA, 35 AD, additional depreciation, payment to scientific for universities and association for scientific research,
ठीक है सर,
deduction under section
ठीक है सर,
chapter 6A, other than ATM or ATJJ, etc. These all exemption and deductions company has to forgo to claim, to opt for concessional tax regime under section 115BA. So in that case, in this question, if the company is opting for that optional regime, then it would not be eligible for this additional depreciation. Otherwise, the interest partly there will be no change, and for this depreciation there would be no change. I hope it is clear to all of you regarding the income tax part, because in this case study we have these 2 MCQs and 1 descriptive question related to your direct tax portion. Clear, Namrata? Yeah, Geeta, it's clear. Namrata, clear. If you have any doubt related to direct tax, then I would take it. Otherwise, I'll just give it over to. If the question is silent on which regime, Asif, in the question is silent about the tax regime. In the case of company, because these are optional 115 BAA and 115 BAB. These are the optional tax regime for which company has to opt. If question is silent about that, so you have to assume that company is not opting for this concessional tax regime. However, in case of individual HUF, if you see the concessional tax regime, which was under section 15 BAC, now becomes a default tax regime. So in that case, the situation is reversed. If the company is not opting out to not exercising the option to opt out of the default tax regime, they will be under section 15 BAC. So this is the difference. Company के लिए what is the main? Normal provision. Domestic company. And what is optional for them is 115 BAB, subject to what the company is eligible for. But for individual HUF, AOP, BOI or artificial juridical person, 115 BAC is default and normal provision is optional now. So if nothing is mentioned, the company is under normal provision, and if nothing is mentioned for these persons, BAC, the default tax regime is the default tax regime. So you have to assume the company is under the default tax regime under section 115 BAC. Clear, Asif? And in the descriptive, you can write a note also in this regard, if nothing is mentioned in the case study. But this is the normal provision for domestic company and for the other person. Similarly, for domestic company, there is a concessional tax regime for cooperative society also, resident cooperative society. So in that case also, normal provisions are applicable to resident cooperative society, and they have an option for 115 BAD and BAE if they want to go for that concessional tax regime. Now moving forward and hand over to Ms. Nisha.
Thank
Nisha,
you,
ma'am.
Dimple. Thank you. Dear student, now we are left with one MCQ and one descriptive question. Both are based on the laws. And yes, in the question and the case study, there was one more issue related to the appointment of women director. Okay, so this MCQ number 5 is just with respect to women director only. It's basically telling that management just approached to CA Rajesh Dhameja for seeking an advice on the appointment of women director in the company. Now they are looking forward ki what he should have suggested regarding the same as per the provision relating to the Companies Act. So as far as this women director is being concerned, I am telling you this provision has been introduced with the Companies Act 2013, my dear friends, and it was a landmark in the history of corporate India. Even though the Constitution of India has granted, this equality, right of equal rights with respect to employment and all these things to men and women. And basically, the problem was that earlier there were very limited opportunities were available for the women's, and generally the employment of women were not preferred. But with the change in the time and the scenarios, now women has also entered the board of rooms of many companies. So this Companies Act 2013 has made a provision for employing women directors on the boards of listed companies. So this is a step toward the gender equality in tune with our requirement of Indian Constitution that way. So if you see why there was a need felt for the inclusion of women director in the board. So the imperative need actually for the women as a director in the board was felt by all, including the regulators such as MCA or it may be the SEBI. And accordingly, the relevant provision from the same were introduced in the Act. So let's see what is a legal provision with respect to the Companies Act. If you see with respect to the Companies Act, section 149, read with rule 3, of the chapter 11 of the Companies Act 2013. Yes, this is the rules related to the appointment and qualification of director. It clearly defines that there is a need of appointment of women director. But which all companies are required to appoint a women director is clearly specified over there. So it says that every listed company, dear friends, the requirement is, yes, the requirement specifically talks about the which company can appoint. So yes, it's a listed company. Apart from the listed company, there are other class of the specified companies also, those who can appoint the women directors in their board. So the act clearly specifies, first is the listed company. For every listed company, as per section 149, it is required that every listed company needs to have a women director. And apart from the listed company, the other specified class of the companies are the company, every other public company who is having the paid up share capital of 100 crore or more. Right. And the condition given is or. Remember this word, or. Right. The other condition is turnover. Turnover requirement is 300 crore or more. Okay, this is the requirement for with respect to the other class of the public companies. So the paid up share capital 100 crore or more or turnover 300 crore, where this is requirement is fulfilling, this requirement of paid up share capital turnover, this limit is fulfilled by any public company, then in that case the women director should be appointed. Now the thing is that or is very important over here. That means either of the condition, either the requirement of the paid up share capital or either the requirement of the turnover. If any of the condition is complied with, there in such a case, such public company needs to appoint a women director. This is, I hope, very much clear. But yes, generally the question is asked about the appointment of women director. Apart from that, the important aspect which is being touched with respect to this provision is with respect to intermittent vacancy. Wherever there is an intermittent vacancy of any women director, then in that case, what shall be the law? Law specifies there that in such case, the board, what the board will do? The board shall at an earliest fill up that intermittent vacancy of a woman director at an earliest. Remember the word at an earliest. That means as early as possible, but the maximum time limit has been fixed by the law. It says within that time it should have been done. The appointment of the woman director had been done within that time period, the maximum prescribed time period. That should be not later than immediate next board meeting, or 3 months from the date of vacancy, whichever is later. Whichever is later, that is the maximum time period. By latest that time, the women director vacancy should be filled. I hope students, you are getting my point and the provision is very much clear to you. Now, as per this prescribed provision, let's go with the MCQ. Okay, so now they're asking what is the suggestion that has been given by CA Rajesh Dhamecha with regard to appointment of women director in the company. The first option that is given over here is that all companies need to appoint a women director. Okay, so if you see, already told, only these are the prescribed companies, either the listed companies or the other public companies with the specified paid up share capital limit as well as turnover. If this is in compliance, then only that company needs to appoint women directors. Since here the given word is all company, and that is why these options become redundant, dear friends. Now moving to the next given option, that every listed company or every other public company having a paid up share capital to more than 100 crores or turnover 2 or more than 300 crores, that listed company or every other public company requires to appoint a women director. This is going in line with whatever the legal provisions has already been explained to you. But yes, let's see the other options also. Next C option is that every listed company or every other public company having a paid up share capital to more than 100 crores or turnover to more than 100 crores. If it is having the paid up share capital prescribed over is 10 crore and the turnover prescribed is 100 crores, then will that company be required to appoint the women director? My dear friend, as per the requirement, it should be 100 crores of paid up share capital or more. And with respect to this turnover, it should be rupees 300 crore or more. So here we are seeing that this prescribed limit is not filling the fulfillment, as well as the turnover requirement is also not being complied with over here. And that is why option C is altogether a incorrect answer. Now moving to option D, that the requirement of a women director is applicable only for private companies. Dear friend, already specified the categories on which all companies the appointment of women director necessitates. So according to that, this option is also wrong. So that way, if you see, neither every company can appoint, neither with the paid up share capital of requirement of 10 crore or turnover of 100 crores is being required to appoint the women director, and neither the private companies. So that is why option D is correct here, as per in line with the legal requirement prescribed under section 149. Now let's go to the descriptive question. This descriptive question is being dealt with the small shareholder director. Already I have told you and explained you in detail the small shareholder related provisions. I hope you will not be having problem in solving this question, because this question says whether the proposal to appoint Mr. Brijesh as a small shareholder director can be adopted by the company, and also brief. That means here the one part is whether the proposal can be adopted of the appointment of Mr. Brajesh, and second, he is asking about to enumerate the law related to the appointment of small shareholder director, and third is that where Mr. Brajesh is already holding a position of small shareholder director in two companies, then what shall be the situation? So please read the questions carefully, because you must be finding here 3 questions are lying within one question. So you need to answer all the question to fulfill the requirement of the question that way. Yes, I am just looking forward to it. Yes, Suraj is saying on as what date should we check these limits? This limit should be as per the latest financial statement, as per the latest balance sheet. Okay, of the latest year. So that audited latest balance sheet. Fine, it is given under the section. Please read the section. Sections clearly mentioning the time period also that way, Suraj. So you can find out it is prescribing the latest audited balance sheet. Now the next question is being asked by Namrita. Namrita is giving option C. Why Namrita? Why option C and Namrita? Because if you could see the limit already told you of the paid up share capital is 100 crores, as well as the turnover of 300 crores. And if you see in the option C, this paid up share capital is 100 crore as well as turnover, this 10 crore as well as 100 crore, which is not in compliance with the legal requirement. And that is why option C is not a correct answer. So you should remember everything, the limits. Somewhere you should, while preparing notes, you should come up across with these limits also. You have to retain somewhere. But since it's an open book system, if you have an idea which relevant provision this women director deals with, you can directly go to that particular legal provision and can read the legal provisions once again before marking the correct answer. So hope this is clear to you. Now moving to the descriptive questions once again. So there I said in the descriptive question, there were 3 questions in itself in a one single question. So now very simple, already explained to you the detailed provision and everything. So I'm directly going to the answer to this question. Yes, already said that this question pertains to section 151 read with rule 7 of the appointment and qualification of directors. So you have to read the entire section with the rules in order to understand. This is what I've told you earlier also. So if you see, already told you that this provision related to small shareholder that is applicable to listed companies. So here, yes, the company was listed company already given in the facts. Then small shareholders are required to give notice to the company for appointment of SSD. Now notice shall be given by, already said that notice shall be given by either the 1,000 small shareholders or 1/10 of the total small shareholder, whichever is lower. So that has also been complied with. You have seen that already it has been proposed by 400 shareholders out of 500. So that has also been complied with. Then third required that notice shall be given at least 14 days before the meeting and should be signed by all the small shareholder who are proposing to appoint such a small shareholder director. This is another requirement. Okay, so this need to be considered in the case study. We have seen that nothing else is better. We are considering that already this condition has been complied with. Now moving to the next condition, that person should not hold the position of small shareholder in more than 2 companies at the same time. This I have already told you while giving or briefing you on the section related to the small shareholders. So there I've already said that at a one time, in a single go, at the same time, they cannot hold more than 2 companies at the same time. Okay, so these are the relevant aspect for answering the question. The facts is given over here, and accordingly we will be finding out and concluding the answer as yes, here Mr. Brijesh will be appointed as a small shareholder director, right? Though he is holding shareholding is 10,000 equity share in the company, because nothing is specified in the the legal provision with respect to eligibility right of holding of any shares with respect to the small shareholder directors, and that is why, since here in the question is holding this share, but it will not be affecting on your answer, it will not be affecting on his appointment that way. So if Mr. Prijesh already holds, this is the important aspect, because many times the question has been asked on this particular portion. Okay, whether if he's already there as a small shareholder in 2 companies, then what about the next if he's going to get opportunity in another company? In that case, no, it is prohibited. It is strictly prohibited that not in more than 2 companies a small shareholder director can be appointed. So if Mr. Vijay is already holding a position of shareholder director in 2 companies, then in that case, he cannot be appointed as a small shareholder director in Vallabh Cotton Limited. So I hope this is also clear to you. Yes, Namrita, it's okay. By mistake, you have written C, but I know much clarity is there to you, to all of you students, those who are making this session really worth of being over here. And really, I'm glad to see that you students made this sessions a great interactive types of the sessions, because you all have responded very well and you've all participated in the queries and everything and come up very well. So wish you all the best, dear students. And apart from these students, we wish you all the best to all of our students for being over here and just being connecting on this session. And it's a humble request that those who have not been joining this live session, they may see the recorded sessions. And it's a request from all of the students, in case of any inquiry or if you require any kind of the issues or the concern with respect to this case study or with respect to this particular paper, I'm just giving you the contact number of Rajiv sir. You can just save this number for your reference, and anytime you can call and clarify your issues and concerns. Please note down the number. Number is 9466789298. Please, dear student, note down this number. Again, I am reiterating, please note down this number. This is number of Rajiv sir. In case of any query, in case of any issue, you can contact at this number. So with this, we would like to conclude the sessions, and thank you for being with us and for your patience listening. Thank you and wish you all the best. Thank you. हाँ हाँ अशोक जी करिए. Thank you, Ashok ji.